say, the future has a name, and its name is hope. A tiny flicker of light that feeds on hope is enough to shatter any shield of darkness. At Mandulus, we really believe.
COVID-19 came and disorganized our economy, brought our health system to its knees, and along the way, affected our rights significantly. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host. Hello, welcome to yet another episode of You and the Law, the COVID edition. My name is Jonathan Achom, your host. You and the Law is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on discussing the law and simplifying it for the ordinary person in this country, be it a teacher, be it a border, be it a doctor, anyone that you know that lives in this country needs to know the law. And here, our work is to simplify it, demystify concepts around the law, and make it a lifestyle for people in Uganda to know the law and live within its means. This edition of You and the Law is focusing on COVID-19 and its effects on human rights law. As you may know, COVID-19 came and disorganized our country, messed up our healthcare system, brought our economy down, but along the way, it also disorganized our rights. A lot of rights have been affected, as we've discussed in previous editions, and today, we focus on the right to property, specifically the right to land. As you know, land injustices have been a big problem in this country for decades, and the advent of COVID-19 has only worsened the situation, especially for poor and vulnerable people in our communities. To help us unpack this session today, I am joined by Rebecca Atayo, a legal officer at Land Uganda. Rebecca, you're welcome to You and the Law.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here.
How have you been?
Been okay, been good.
And I know that when this virus, came in, we had to reconfigure so many things, workplaces, our lifestyles changed. How has COVID-19 affected you as a person, as a professional? What could you just share in terms of your work and how it has been affected by COVID-19?
Well, as a person, it's definitely been different. The times in which we move are restricted. The places that we can access are also equally restricted. But also in terms of the workplace, the way in which we work generally has changed. We work more remotely now. You can work from home, always on Zoom meetings, one meeting after the other, and you never get time to. Now, no specified hours of work.
Yeah.
You basically work around the clock. So personally, I would say that would be the biggest change. Professionally, still, I think there are restrictions in offices that we can access now, and when we can access, or how our modes of work. So that would basically be what I would say has changed.
Okay, so you come from Land Uganda, which is perhaps one of the leading technical organizations on land matters in this country. I thought maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about the organization that you work for and the kind of work that you do at LandNet.
LandNet Uganda is a non-governmental / civil society organization that basically does work around land governance, land management, and access to land justice. Our main areas of work are around policy and legal reform, advocacy on land, gender, and natural resource issues, and doing research for purposes of also policy and legal reform. So those are our main areas of work, and how we do our work at LandNet Uganda. Like I mentioned earlier, our core focus areas are gender, land, and natural resources.
Okay. And in terms of, talked about legal reform. So since this is You and the Law, I thought maybe you could just give us a sneak peek into some of the laws that you've been working on reforming in this country. Those perhaps you've already accomplished, or those that are in the works. Could you just...
As LandNet Uganda?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, LandNet Uganda, together with the Women Land Rights Movement, spearheaded the reform of the Succession Act that is currently still undergoing reform. So they were key in mobilizing other organizations to come together and advocate for the reform of this law, because it directly affects issues around access and control of land as a resource, because inheritance is one of the forms in which land is transmitted. So it spearheaded efforts around advocacy, did a lot of research, produced issues papers, produced a policy paper around it, and a series of issues that issue papers dealing with direct issues or clauses within that particular law. So it also sponsored that bill in Parliament together with WOPA for it as a private members bill.
WOPA is the
Uganda Women Parliamentary Association.
Okay.
Then we also worked together with the German Embassy on the land acquisition bill.
Yes.
And
very controversial area.
Definitely, very, very controversial. And we brought key stakeholders together to try and brainstorm on what should be reflected within this law. What kind of law do we want to see, and what would work best for Ugandans? So those are the two main bills that we have worked on so far as LandNet Uganda. But we also look forward to the ongoing reforms that are allegedly on the way. We hope that we'll participate actively and be at the forefront of basically having a voice or having input into those processes.
That's interesting, because I think the current term of office, the president has been very deliberate about the need for land reforms, and I hope you'll get the opportunity to be part of those spaces. So coming back to COVID-19, like talked about how it has, reconfigured the whole world and affected some of the fundamental rights that we have. And today we're specifically talking about land. And I thought we could start by sort of having an understanding of what actually, when you talk about land rights, what exactly are we talking about? Because I think sometimes it's easier to throw these words around, and we've not had the time to reflect
what
on
exactly
what
we're
actually
talking
this,
about. Yes. So land and property rights are usually, say, encompassed together, because one is we could say a subset of the other. Land is a form of property that's passed on. But generally, property ownership is structured on layers of social organization, and these are signified by various social phenomena, including cultural beliefs, legal institutions, social practices, and social relations. So these relations basically are what contribute to create land rights or influence what looks like.
Basically the context.
Yes,
that
the
we live in.
context of land rights. So it will be different for societies, but also different for different jurisdictions, because they are influenced by different legal frameworks. So, but generally, the interests usually created are around interests or rights to use, rights to own, rights to control, dispose, alienate, lease, sale, and things like that. So those are some of the components of what constitutes land rights. But even the concept of property can be traced back to Roman law, which basically introduced what property is and what possession is. So their understanding of property was like in English law, what would amount to absolute ownership.
Okay.
Yes, and within absolute ownership, you had use rights, you had the rights to enjoy the fruits from that land, and then you had the rights to dispose of.
If you grow your matoke,
exactly,
you have the right to.
Yes, to benefit from that plant. Whatever is grown on that land will be for your benefit as the person with absolute property rights, so absolute ownership. Yes.
Okay, and those things sort of you're explaining, I believe should have some legal backing. So I'm wondering, so when you talk about land rights, exactly, is there a law that specifies what those rights are that you're explaining about using or owning, controlling?
Okay, so Land as a human right has not yet been explicitly codified within international instruments as a human right or recognized as a
it just exists in the air.
Human right. So you won't find say a soft law instrument that specifically speaks to the right to land or the human right of
Isn't
land.
that sad?
Well, it is, because there are very many valid arguments for why land as a human right should be long-standing and not encompassed or seen as a transient right to obtain or enjoy other rights. So it's linked closely to the right to food, the right to housing, the right to an adequate standard of living, the right to cultural and social, to enjoy cultural and social beliefs. So within those particular frameworks, they recognize that it's important to have land as a component, or to recognize its centrality in being able to enjoy those particular rights.
Okay, let's go for a break at this point, and then when we get back, we'll sort of build on that conversation. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition, and today we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on land and property rights here in Uganda. And we're joined by Rebecca Tayo from LandNet Uganda. Let's go for a break. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome to this edition of. But what does it mean to be married? How does the law look at marriage? So this conversation today will focus on for people to just know about the law. Because I know you've been teaching law and practicing law for all.
If you go to a restaurant, you must ensure that you have the money, because you're consuming someone's energy and investment.
Yeah.
So you must be able to pay for that. So we interact with the law at all times.
It's part of our everyday life.
Yes.
Man, you don't want to be in trouble after many years of working hard only to realize that you have no rights at all, simply because you didn't celebrate any of the marriages that are recognized within the laws of Uganda. With that, we come to the end of this edition of You and the Law. It's a bye from us. See you next time. Welcome back. You're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition, here on House of Talent Television, proudly brought to by Legal Hub Uganda in partnership with I4C Africa Hub. And today we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on human rights here in Uganda, and specifically on the right to land and the right to property. So, Rebecca, before the break, we were talking about how understanding the law, the legal framework around property rights, and you were sort of giving us the international angle. Could we sort of try to move deep down now into our country, sort of as part of our background, that what law sort of provides for the right to property and specifically the right to land, and then have a discussion on how the rights the duty that the state has in this effect, especially in the angle of COVID-19 now, raising a number of challenges that are affecting people's right to property and specifically the right to land.
Okay, so particularly for our national context, we'll start with Article 237 of the Constitution that recognizes that land is owned by the citizens of Uganda according to the 4 tenure systems. That's Milo, freehold, leasehold, and customary land tenure. So that already tells you that land here is owned by the citizens.
By us.
Yes, by us, and
by
not
the
necessarily
viewers.
by the state. And then it also comes down and breaks it down further and says in Article 26 that every person shall have the right to own property either as an individual or jointly with others. So those are the 2 main clauses of the constitutions that we refer to when we talk about land rights. Yes.
Okay. And then is there any other law in the country?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a number of laws that relate to land. We have the Land Act of 1998.
Wow, okay.
We have the Mortgage Act. We have the Registration of Titles Act. We have the Land Acquisition Act. We have, I think it's the Access to Roads Act.
Oh,
the
yeah.
National
There's
Road
so
Act.
many.
Yes.
Yes.
We have laws relating to valuation, the Survey Act. So there are a number of laws that really govern land management and governance.
Okay. So then looking at land as a human right, under the law, the state has given specific obligations on how to protect obligation in terms of ensuring that people's rights to land and other property is protected. So I'm wondering, what does that practically mean from the angle of land? And then we'll try to see how that has worked in these COVID times. Yeah.
So the state as a duty bearer has a number of obligations it has to perform in order to protect, promote and fulfill the right to land, even though we already mentioned that the right to land is not a lone-standing right, but we derive it from other rights. One, the state has an obligation to ensure that the right to land is enjoyed by all without discrimination. So that means they have to remove and prohibit all forms of discrimination when it comes to access, when it comes to use, control, and management of land.
So you can't say persons with disabilities or women can't own land.
Yes.
It's everyone.
Yes. Everyone should be given the opportunity. And where, as a result of, say, culture or traditions, there are certain discriminatory practices that are in place, then the state has to take further action through affirmative action to make sure that special attention is given to those particular groups to eliminate that discrimination. Then the state also has to refrain from measures that would cause the enjoyment of the right to land and natural resources to regress. So obligations against regression. So for example, if you remember the debate that we had around the land acquisition bill, putting clauses that as if limit unjustly the right to property because compensation was not happening prior to taking over possession.
So basically the state was running away from...
So that the state was regressing by if it indeed went ahead, if it had gone ahead and passed it as a law, that would be a retrogressive step.
So then with those sort of clear roles, COVID-19 then comes and sort of disorganizes how things have been. And I'm wondering, how has this virus, the pandemic, how has it strictly affected land rights in Uganda? Because like I indicated at the start of the program, that there was already we've had so many land issues in this country. So COVID-19 just basically came and sort of worsened the situation. So I'm wondering, how has it been? How has COVID-19 affected land rights in Uganda?
Okay, COVID-19, just like any other sector, the land sector was not spared. So it was affected in various ways. One, in terms of land administration, I think during this period, the Ministry of Lands halted certain operations. And because of this, for example, MZOs were not, ministerial zonal offices were not fully operational as they had been before. So the effect was that transactions were a bit paused. It was not easy for transactions to be ongoing because a number of officers were not in office at that time. But it also delayed, let's say, in terms of accessing these offices by the vulnerable, it was so much harder to get there because of access in terms of movement. So that was also detrimental. In terms of tenure security, we would say, especially for vulnerable groups such as women, what happened is that a number of women, this may seem far-fetched, but a number of women lost spouses as a result of COVID-19. And we know that women's rights to land and property are hinged on male relation in many instances in their family. So when you lose a husband, you're put at risk because you may be chased out of that land or disinherited because you don't have the attachment to the male personality within the family. Then in terms of access to land justice as well, courts were not fully operational during that time. So people who were suffering some form of human rights violations on their land or were victims of forced evictions were not easily accessing the courts.
I think there was even a report that actually showed sort of an increase in
land evictions, despite the fact that the ministry had issued directives, the increase in forced land eviction was reflected. So there is definitely that. It also affected livelihoods. Land is a factor of production for agriculture. So during this period, farmers were not able to access inputs for land, but also if you have managed to finally have harvest, you're not able to access markets, or the demand for the product the supply was too much and the demand had gone down.
I think I saw farmers selling a matoke at
500 shillings.
1,000 shillings a bunch, a cluster, or whatever.
So those are some of the effects of COVID-19 on the sector.
And perhaps before we go for a break, we need to have sort of a conversation on some of the measures. I know you hinted on them that the government of Uganda put in place to try to address some of the effects that COVID-19 has had on the land sector. But maybe we'll pick on that after a short break. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition, and today we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on land rights in Uganda. We're joined by Rebecca Tayo, the legal officer at Landnet Uganda, one of the leading organizations working on land issues in this country. Let's go for a short break. We'll be right back. Then you spread the love. Yeah, so Emma, how have you been?
Well, I've been great.
Yeah, we're coming in from 42 days of a lockdown. How has it been on your end?
It's been quite difficult. You wake up in the morning, you sit around the compound, you look at the time, you lose sense of the calendar because you fail to understand which is a Monday and which is a Sunday.
You're even lucky that you have a compound. Some people live in one-bedroom houses and have nothing to look except their iron sheets.
Yeah, sure.
And really, you're our first guest really on this program. And why do you think it's sort of important for people to just know about the law? Because I know you've been teaching law and practicing law for all these years. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. When it comes to the law, we basically live the law, on a day-to-day basis. Whether it is in your bedroom, there is a law that governs it. If you're married, for example, even if you're single, there could be something touching on the law because you might be in your bedroom with an underage girl, or you might be with another person's wife. All the things are the law. When you jump on a border, there is law. When you're driving, we're talking about traffic. If you go to a restaurant, you must ensure that you have the money because you're consuming someone's energy and investment. So you must be able to pay for that. So we interact with the law at all times.
It's part of our everyday life.
Yes.
Man, you don't want to be in trouble after many years of working hard only to realize that you have no rights at all simply because you didn't celebrate any of the marriages that are recognized within the laws of Uganda. With that, we come to the end of this edition of You and the Law. It's a bye from us. See you next time. Welcome back. You're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition, and today we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on land rights in Uganda. And we're joined by Ms. Rebecca Tayo, legal officer at Landnet Uganda. Rebecca, before we went for a break, we started this conversation around the measure that government of Uganda put in place to try to protect land rights amidst, you know, an unforgiving pandemic that COVID-19 has been. And so I thought maybe we could pick on the conversation from there. What are some of the things that government of Uganda, either through the Ministry of Lands and other organizations, you know, do to try to protect people amidst, you know, such a trying time?
Thank you, Jonathan. I think I know of only about 2 or 3 measures by the ministry. There could be more, but I think the right person to mention them would be from the ministry. So one of them was a directive issued by the ministry to stop evictions during the lockdown period. I think the ministry even went further to have discussions with the judiciary on these evictions and eviction notices, and a practice directive was issued by the Chief Justice to also halt evictions during this period. And then where they were not, it was not possible to halt them, it was, these evictions were to be verified by the courts that issued them before they could be executed. Yeah.
I mean, it's very interesting because then they seem to have focused only on matters that maybe for things that will be, you know, before court. I don't know if there's anything they did around resolving land issues, say, around during using the local council codes or other structures, because I'm sure that even within them, there were a lot of cases arising in this period. But again, like you said, some of these issues are better explained by the people in the ministry. But we could then sort of try then to look at what do you make of those interventions? Did they work? Didn't they work? What could have been, you know, any challenges encountered in the course of trying to enforce some of those protections that were issued by the government of Uganda?
Maybe I'll start by referring back to what you said, that the focus was mainly on evictions and evictions that are issued by court. All legal evictions must be issued through a court order. But I think at the time the government was looking at which is the biggest threat right now, which is possibly rendering some people landless and having nowhere to go during desperate times. So it was trying to avoid that, and it seemed like the biggest threat at that point. So I imagine that is why the ministry decided to focus, the ministry and judiciary, on land evictions during that time.
Well, it's a big problem in the country anyway.
Yes, it is. It's definitely a big problem. And then also the spirit or the attitude of impunity, that despite there being practice directives, despite there being practice directions, and directives by the ministry, evictions continued to happen. Each and every other day on the media, we saw an eviction story happening. So I think, of course, these measures did not necessarily work. Because it continued to happen despite,
It's interesting because I think well-intended as the measures could be, but I think we have lived long enough in this country to also know that maybe there are a bit of some exceptions that happen in the course of enforcing some of these measures. But then, this is 2021. We don't know what could happen in 2023, 2025. The dynamics of this virus are not yet very, clear to everyone. We don't know how long it's going to take. But we're wondering if we find ourselves in a situation like this, perhaps in another 5 or 10 years, what could be sort of your ideas around measures for protecting land rights in difficult times like the ones that we find ourselves in at the moment? Because part of the essence of this show is really to generate policy proposals, recommendations that can be picked on in future if we find ourselves in a situation that may not be a pandemic, it could be something else, but something of this magnitude that disorganizes our normal lives.
I'd say it's important for say the state as a duty bearer to recognize, first of all, view land as a human right. So put first, before anything, instead of viewing land as a possible commodity and financial asset, and viewing it mainly through the lens of investment and production and an aid to economic development, view land as a human right.
As an entitlement.
Yes, and basically what you're doing by doing that, what you're trying to achieve by doing that is to put before anything else people's needs on land, people's aspirations when it comes to land, putting first people's livelihoods, because then you recognize the centrality in land in having a dignified and self-sustaining and self-determined community. So it's important for them to look at land rights from that angle in order to have their priorities right. Yeah.
It's an interesting angle to look at it, because I think the lens that through which our government always operates is to see this as a tool for development and not something that people should have as a right, much as there's sort of that recognition for of land rights as a right. But I thought that perhaps we could try to explain further, expound on the roles of the state, because you indicated at the start that land rights are human rights, and the state has very many obligations in this area, and I thought maybe you wanted to expound on those areas again as part of our way of also thinking of a way forward.
I think aside from the ones I already mentioned, the state also has the duty to fulfill the right to land, and this basically means that the state has an obligation, or would ordinarily have an obligation, to provide or make land more accessible, or ensure that citizens have better control, tenure security of their land, and it's not susceptible to threat. So even for landless communities, it's important that the government provides land because of what it signifies. That means they'll have food security. That means they'll have access to some form of livelihood. So I think government has done that, especially for refugee communities where it has provided land.
There's a complaint that we seem to pay a lot of attention to
refugees as opposed to Ugandans. Anyway, but yeah, so they have the obligation to fulfill the right to land, but they also have the obligation rather to protect that right from threat.
What does that practically entail? Like, how does the government protect people's?
I think protecting basically is ensuring that that right is not threatened. And what that would look like would be putting in place laws and policies that entrench and protect this right, but also ensuring that there are laws that sanction third parties who threaten this right. That could be individuals, that could be corporations, other entities that threaten the right to land on individuals. So protecting takes that form of ensuring that this right is not threatened.
Some people argue that some individuals could be different to distinguish from a duty bearer. I don't know what you think.
Well, I don't want to speculate, but it seems to be the case. That's true. But the state has to distinguish itself from particular agents of the state or arms of, or particular individuals, and play its role to protect generally its citizens when it comes to their right to land. Then it also has, I think we talked about protection, we've talked about fulfillment, we talked about restraining from retrogression, also promote this right or promote the right to land. So promotion is basically ensuring that this right is enjoyed. Citizens are able to enjoy their land, facilitating transactions in a seamless and easeless manner, ensuring that there is a security of tenure, both for people with titled land and non-titled land. For us,
the customary land
owners, among other things.
We own our land through stories.
Exactly.
That, I inherited from my father, and my father got from his father, and and the circle continues.
Continue.
Yeah. But then I could then ask that, in terms of the challenges that are encountered, either by the state in trying to protect people in this period, but also, individuals, what could be your highlight of the key challenges that have been affecting people's ability to protect their land rights, more so in difficult times like what we're having today because of COVID-19?
I think the biggest challenge that individuals have is the threat to their security of tenure. And this is not just perceived, because security of tenure is mostly a perception that that you're secure on your land and your rights are indivisible against a third party and against the whole world. But right now, people are no longer secure, even with title. There is no title security, because you don't know who may come out and claim or put a claim to the same piece of land. So for me, I think that is the biggest challenge that we face currently. It's even worse for people who don't have any form of documentation to show.
Over
that
70 or something percent.
Yes. So for me, that's the biggest challenge that people.
And then for the government, because like you said, we have good laws in place and everything. But what has been affecting government's ability to protect rights amidst this period? Because it clearly laid out the obligation that the state have to respect, protect, and to fulfill. What would you think are the hindrances that have sort of stopped, enabled those things to continue happening, yet the government has still the obligation? I mean, has put in place a bit of infrastructure to try to handle this. Why are they not being able to fulfill their mandate?
Their obligations. I think for me, I would narrow it down to about 3 things. One is, first of all, even in terms of capacity, the government is still, especially Ministry of Lands, there are capacity issues, human resource, but also financially, in ensuring that they're able to deliver on their mandate when it comes to protection of human rights. Secondly, there's also just a culture of impunity. Even when the ministry goes ahead to issue some form of directive to protect citizens, it's not respected by many. They still want an abuse of these directives. So that is definitely a challenge, and it just requires some form of mindset shift from the public generally. Then another challenge that I think the ministry is experiencing would be in terms of
you're raising challenges, and I mean, for the ordinary person, that looks a bit tricky, because people always assume that the state has obligation because it has the resources, it has the the instruments of coercion, and is in a better place to protect people, especially in a time like this. So, I mean, having you discuss their challenges, I mean, I think for ordinary person could be really heart-wrenching. In the middle of the show, we talked about the fact that most of the directives that have been put in place by the government to curb land rights violations during COVID-19 seem to have been centered more towards matters that were before court, eviction and stuff like that. And some people have been urging that perhaps the closure of courts, the failure of the justice system to operate during the pandemic, raises the need for alternative ways of resolving disputes. And I thought I'd pick your mind. How do you think, first of all, what are the alternative models that exist for resolving land cases in this country? And how do you think they would have been effective in enabling people enjoy their rights or protecting people's rights during the coronavirus pandemic?
Of course, The local council courts are an alternative. It's still part of the formal justice system and the formal justice structure, but they're an alternative that could be exploited because they are closest to the people, they come from within the community, so they understand the context in which they operate. So that's an avenue that we could look at exploiting. For customary tenure, we have clan structures, we have family structures that could also be exploited to deal with land rights violations within these particular areas. I think the biggest issue would be trying to capacitate these particular structures to perform their roles and carry out their duties.
Some people say that some of them have never even seen the constitution.
Yes, and, and it's not a lie, because a majority of them may not even know how to convene the court, how to issue judgment, summon witnesses, things like those. So you find that even for the elite, they would not turn to these structures because they don't have confidence in the kinds of judgments that would be issued. They don't believe in due process, probably, or in many instances, people feel like because they are from within the community, they could be easily compromised.
Because they are relatives, friends.
So issues like that. But I think that particular structure, the LC2, which is I think the first court of instance for land matters, could be exploited to deliver justice.
Okay. I mean, interesting angles, and I think viewers, as we come to the tail end of this conversation, it's important for us to understand what mechanisms are in place for us to resolve land conflict under normal times, but also more importantly during periods like these, when the normal functioning of the judicial system is heavily compromised because of the need to protect people from, contracting or spreading the coronavirus or any other pandemic that might hit us soon. As we come to the end, Rebecca, what could be your parting shot, really, and what message would you leave out to Ugandans out there who are watching this program, who have been affected by COVID-19, especially from the angle of their property rights? What options would you give them now that maybe things are normalizing or might be normalizing soon?
For Ugandans who have been affected during this period, first of all, I would implore them not to lose hope. There's still avenues through which you can access justice. The courts are now fully operational, I think, and they have also adopted technological changes. So you can approach the courts for whatever needs or justice needs that you may have, but also utilize the local council system, utilize traditional systems if you're within the tenure system or the customary land tenure system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. With that, viewers, we've come to the end of today's episode of You and the Law, the COVID edition. We've been privileged to host Ms. Rebecca Tayo, the legal officer at Land Uganda. Until next week, when we discuss another topical area of interest from the human rights angle. It's a bye from now from us here at House of Talent Studio. See you. COVID-19 came and disorganized our economy, brought our health system to its knees, and along the way, affected our rights significantly. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host.
I have the pleasure to present to you
KCCA has taken a number of steps to address this sanitation challenge, which include, but not limited to the following: the setup,
Hello?
Welcome to Slam Dunk Basketball Talk.
A wise man once said, "The future has a name, and its name is hope. A tiny flicker of light that feeds on hope is enough to shatter any shield of darkness." At Mandulus, we really believe.
sinnabako byendaba nze sinnabako wendaga maaso ku lutimbe gwe kanula amatoola be ennyindo zisamuka amaaso gawulira mpebooka bw'otonga enziku oba mukenenya byonna mponya zirwala bigalanga olugattako pulesa balwala sukaali na munnyo nze bunzaali kano kekatta emmese kekatta ebiyenje kana akayimba katta n'ebiku ebyabateesi ndi musezi ntambula giro neebaka misana gye nzanyumya ebitanyuma ayimba bye banaalaba nvumbula binajja nvunza mu sikaati mbatambuza ensi yonna nga nfuse ekilipsi ndi mbaale mu maleewa nti Kampala mu bafere jinja lya mukiira nze tololo mu seminti sinyoomwa neddira ssanyu akabbiro byoya bwompa akati misinde nzaasembayo okutuuka ntuuse n'akayimba k'essanyu kali special storyteller n'engero nnyumya nkuwa kawoowo bagamba Kampala nze kalina potential ntuuse n'akayimba k'essanyu kali special storyteller n'engero nnyumya nkuwa kawoowo bagamba Kampala nze kalina potential commercialization ibisange ku citation nazaalibwa kuba nze byemmanyi nkuwa education nakyo born killer nsanga mu sitenseni bwe ntugantuga barapa bonneno tension tebandoga nzibyesho nze siwanda muliro tebanyigannako nsambye mike evumbeera stokisi nzisudde eri kondomu nzisambye eri nzadde rapu omu Kampala aleeta pampa gamba kwesto neibura tibebase nnyo omuzukulu azadde balongo mu jeno twalule gamba zalya nkuba nnyo Juliana akuze nnyo gamba endiza ya luzinda ng'emyaka tegigenda tuli Kampala mu bwengula minibazi twambula banaatera kutugaana kuzaala mbujjaamu aweze amata tunywa gambuzi oluusi bakama nnume tumwongere ekisanje kiddako tunywe ku gente ntuuse n'akayimba k'essanyu kali special storyteller n'engero nnyumya nkuwa kawoowo bagamba Kampala nze kalina potential ntuuse n'akayimba k'essanyu kali special storyteller n'engero nnyumya nkuwa kawoowo bagamba Kampala nze kalina potential emyaka giba gitandika nze nnyongera kulukuta nina sitole z'okutandika ssebo okutaputa amanya Nelson Saint kuba kugattako nze yasikira abennamugongo nga babokyezza ndi mutume natumibwa kuba abakalimputtu mu Buganda bamanyiko kimusoza masowaani nsokanga ku lyate nennaaba olw'engalo bakabasajja banneesi bakonda gye nakoowa sigenda sikoowa sigejja nkyusa nekkala abasiima ogenze valuvalu mu hapo vipi sema tubeera tuddamu nti hapo saawa nze kanzire Dar es Salaam twogere ebisingawo ntuuse n'akayimba k'essanyu kali special storyteller n'engero nnyumya nkuwa kawoowo bagamba Kampala nze kalina potential ntuuse n'akayimba k'essanyu kali special storyteller n'engero nnyumya nkuwa kawoowo bagamba Kampala nze kalina potential yes nze mbongera buwoowo anti-commercialization omulondo n'engero kakubidde wano kakubidde waffe kakubidde eno Saint Nelly kikola sense nnyo neera neno Nelly
So I'm a rebel with the trouble. They all tremble when I babble. Make them wobble, make them rumble. Give them trouble cause they gamble. Man, I'm a gamble, sakata fimbo, sakata flow. Now we go, tumble when they jumble. Then we go, wombo lombo. Wibble, wabble, wabble. Mpola mpola, sebo. Mini stacky mambo jumbo. I bounce like a dribble. I ball like Mutombo. Going global like the mobile. Now police are black label. Mimi ni when I rebel. Where I'm from is called Kampala, is Kawempe. Up to Calcutta to the whole world. Yes, sir. We'll be taking over the whole globe real soon. Where you from? Where you from?
Oh, from Kingston to the Congo, Black Spear, we do it like the jungle, you know? From Crown Ice where them bombs go. We tell you right now, we're tougher and tougher and tougher. Get stronger. Move through these streets. You used to make fun of me when I was a little child, you see? Yeah. You know, you always have half belief, you know? Because the man will murder and some of them man will thief. You know? Smoke ganja.
Elijah Tucker, Sylvester Ne Abrams.
In my movies, them my life got myself all day. Today, no bad mind, but positivity. Humbleness to myself, a smile to make myself look fresh. Think better, bigger and biggest. Sweet vibes well equalized. Only times when I'm rolling down Kampala streets uptown, downtown. Hustle mpola Mo magazine apatanga nkola Nasikiriza nebafala Just buka kamute mulina malala
Kwebera poa Tobabusa Kona bibyo Just poa Kwebera poa Tobabusa Kona bibyo Just poa
Sylvester ndibyanke sigena na bitutuma kulaba wetuddeko kulaba okukuma onotera okuyimbula empologoma okunuma emali yange gye nakola wodala yakuluma kataka enkolagana yange nenabyuma ng'okoba musajja munno osobola okutomera ekyuma olowooza kamegge enjovu kenkanawa eddamu afunanga sitepu zange kati ndipoa sibabuusa ekinakulya kamevu kigira mu kususa owakazeke alaba olwobyo ebyesusiza mugendeko mpola omuwa pulaani zojja kwejjusa
kwebera poa tobabuusa kola bibyo just poa kwebera poa tobabuusa kola bibyo just poa
nekolera jange nekolera byange nekolera zange tonsumbuwa ndi byange ogamba nvuubika ate nga byendya byange ebyo biganye ojerega byange mbanga santama nga talina byakwambala bavuluka byetukola kubanga byabasukkako babyagala naye obusobozi bwo tebalina okuva bwe nazuula ekyo tebansuuza byange nsekera mu kikonde baagala nsuule balonde balooza buli omu awalula tinsawo ya lumonde simanyi gokka n'amagezi mu ssonde tutadde emyaka mingi mu kuyiga ebintu bye tukola
Blaza, oba sister, tata, oba mama, Kampala omupya, n'omukadde, olulu wayise owino, Africa, East Africa, Uganda, omurasta ne master, omuyindi oba omuzimbi, just to mention a few, naye ffenna.
Kwebera poa, tobabuusa, kola bibyo, just poa. Kwebera poa, tobabuusa, kola bibyo, just poa.
Yali asibye ebiswayiri nga lines ziri straight yali abasiga graffiti ku ngalo kwaliko paint lwe nasooka okulaba hip hop gwali mwaka gwa 78 nali siraba nga muwala nga juzza figure 8 ebbina lye lyali ddene eyo ye yali bait nasooka naŋŋamba nti no 2 times 8 yali ayagala mukubiremu 16 bars eziri tight naye mwana ebiseera ebyo nange nali nkyali fala rhyme gye nasooka okukuba n'agiziimuula nali nkyayavula ibro n'amutwala kwesto ye n'alyoka amufuula omukyala namusanga akisinga Sylvester ne Abrams ku DV8 babaluku navyo n'abataka balinga babaabe namwegomba z'okulaba lyrical G ku no end Lumix ye yamuleetanga entinda ku weekend yala like milk be balinga ba girlfriend be nze ne mulekwa back in the day had no money to spend namuweereza kasoda nanga kimanye nti jendi ani yali amanyi tulibeera together in the end BFE yatandika okufuna platinum checks nandaga ba queen ba P-Tech ne ba president yangamba Bagamba mbulire stories aba ghetto residents. Luga flow is my culture, so I must represent. Yangambe gulu lyampe ekitole ky'okubeera intelligent. Nyinyonnyola abaana concepts babeere confident. Global yampa amaanyi g'okubeera eloquent. Tuwa tuzikubye locally ne internationally. Financially yeyanyimusa nanzija ku cement. Spiritual, I'm trying to be the best man I can be. Lyrically, the pen is mightier than the sword I can see. And I promise to love you forever. Signed yours sincerely. Dear hip hop nze nkumisinga. Mu bakazi be nakabeera nabo ye gwasinga. Chechi kunyiga chechi kabya amaziga nze nkoyo okulaba nga bakumistreetinga. Oli mulungi smile eringa poetry. Kakwate mu kiwato ng'akwata ekitontome. Tutambule ffembi abateesika tubalumye. Tula waneno ku kisambi nkunyumize story. Memories mu mpewo nga boomerang zikomawo. Ng'omwagalwa wange ng'awunya akawoowo. Nga Aaron Ebao twesikamu ne twejjawo. First date ne hip hop twalya luwombo lwakaawo. Bwe nakola poeme yasooka yagamba wow. Ne mulaga eggulu nga telescope ya Galileo. Luga flow ng'akyawoma nga sumbuse yakawo. Kino bakasangwawo kye balanga nkiribaawo. Bw'oba owakana gwe genda obuuze jjajjaawo. Najjako akawuwo ne mpandika fomula empya ku lubaawo. GNL Zamba lyrical architect w'ekimbeewo. Sajone yayawula aba hip hop mu kipeepeewo. Buli ssaawa obwongo bubeera budduka ng'akaweewo. Naye mwana GNL Zamba n'otulekawo. Mpulira kati oyimba ne mangere mwakola jjuwo. Nowe wuwoddamu tukube sheziri annual. Baboon forward basomere manual. Hit city classic style eri fantastic. Zambo yagala kala ya white olinga wa traffic. Konzo mwana muzungu naye omutima gwaba nilotic. We go together just like gin and tonic. Juzi namugambye engeri gye njagala mu hip hop. Naye n'agamba mulete mu buliri tukole manage twa. Kuba ndaba engeri gy'omu missing oyinza n'okwewa obutwa. Dear hip hop nze nkumisinga. Mu bakazi be nakabeera nabo ye gwasinga. Chechi kunyiga chechi kabya amaziga nze nkoyo okulaba nga bakwabusinga. Oli mulungi smile eringa poetry. Kakwate mu kiwato ng'akwata ekitontome. Tutambule ffembi abateesika tubalumye. Tula wano ku kisambi gunyumize story. Dear hip hop nze nkumisinga. Mu bakazi be nakabeera nabo ye gwasinga. Chechi kunyiga chechi kabya amaziga nze nkoyo okulaba nga bakwabusinga. Oli mulungi smile eringa poetry. Kakwate mu kiwato ng'akwata ekitontome. Tutambule ffembi abateesika tubalumye. Tula wano ku kisambi nkunyumize story.
Yeah. It's God's MC. What y'all just be? What up? Listen. I got a G.O.D. all up in my DNA. Tornadoes, I get you carried away. Normally you get awake and get buried, but Myers and listeners buried awake. Came to the session to bless them and swap them with the seconds. I carried the lake. Do the impossible, move every obstacle out of the way that I bury. Break every expert, an exam. And my DNA strand was left stranded. The head jam into a jam. I got called masculine red-handed. I say that my reach only expanded. Even my setbacks and set standards. Impress gamblers, I get better. I'm the wild card, more or less gambit. God is my witness in my defense. I was born swimming in the deep end. For me, killing tracks is a must do. Ain't no maybe, ain't no defense. Every rap campaign, I spearhead, guaranteed to get my point into a crosses before they from Mars to direction. Automatically got pointed to the cross. I am pretty clear for a road sign. I put on in my off time that I'm respected, with or with no rhymes, and I'm connected. Even when offline, moving these bars for no habits. And when every Star Wars comparison, every newcomer to sing, I ain't better than only when I respect the American. It's a story of how an ex-heritage was ill afforded a godly inheritance. The one like a professor emeritus. We know we never deserve it, they married us. So while they feed up a sprinkler, they catch and they lean in the seat of their lamb. But mercy, we in the seat and on all they behalf as we kneel and we pleaded the lamb for mercy. I used to lit it when they get into the ring, but these days I got overtones. Cause everyone that I know wanna be king, but nobody wanna be overthrown. You should know that I came up battling. I'm used to punches getting overthrown like javelins and go over domes. The slack is something I don't condone. While cats were trying to be Hova clones, I go bully before Jehovah's stone. That's why all these skills that I'm known to hone got lyrics with spiritual overtones. I ask a competitors chrome for chrome. Hip hop is my house and I'm home alone. That's it, I'm only here to make observations and messenger echoes across the globe. So hands in the air if you got the God DNA. God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. You ready? God DNA. Yeah. God DNA. Hands in the air if you got that God DNA. Hands in the air if you got that back, cause all that matters is Jesus is coming back. Will he find you faithful or distasteful? Will he need to be graceful, cause you never got your breakthrough? Never humble yourself enough to let him break you. What let it take you? SB bringing these little ways to so they can shake you. What's the matter who we bring the bass to? If faith isn't what we give a bass to. If a trumpet's blaring and you wanna hear it, but it got me in it, it's not apparent that it's nothing but gimmicks, it's all apparent. And when we must account, we'll be so embarrassed. Man, that DNA can't be fake, bruh. It's why we love when they hate, bruh. It's nothing not authentic or made up. When it come to my genetic makeup, take the blood type, better be A&O. Cause when it come to Christ, that's the way it goes. From KLA to Mako, we turn up all the way, and all my people. Put your
hands in the air if you got the God DNA.
God DNA.
Hands in the air if you got the God DNA.
God DNA.
Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. God DNA. God DNA.
Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. God DNA. God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. Hands in the air if you got the God DNA. God DNA. God DNA. Turn up.
R.I.P. moms. Yeah, never forget you. Yeah, and for everybody else that we lost, everybody that we love. Yeah, I miss you. LG.
Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on. Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on.
Been a couple things going through my head. Time's getting hard, somehow I gotta maintain. There'll be another pain if I get caught up in the rain. Will I be the same? Will I be ready for the change? My heart is aching, I'm anxiously waiting. Time don't fail me while I'm anticipating. What am I saying? I'm not mistaken. Gotta pull myself up before I start fading.
Still my whole life, check what I heard, what happened then. That dreadful night when you heard that accident. Doc said it wasn't no thing, you'd make it. It still broke my heart to see you stretched out on a hospital bed. Had to explain the pain that you felt as you lay there. Tears flowing down my eyes watching you smile. Many years later, can't get over my loss, cause I still can't believe that you're gone. Nah.
Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on. Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on.
Been a couple things going through my head. Time's getting hard, somehow I gotta maintain. There'll be another pain if I get caught up in the rain. Will I be the same? Will I be ready for the change? My heart is aching, I'm anxiously waiting. Time don't fail me while I'm anticipating. What am I saying? I'm not mistaken. Gotta pull myself up before I start fading.
All alone in this cold, cold world. I'm on my own in the zone where there's nowhere to turn. What can I do? Should I lose it? Hard when I'm missing you. It's heavy on my mind, yo, this feeling so pitiful. True, it hurts bad when a loved one is gone. When it pours, you can't do much but weather the storm. Miss you a lot, never stop singing this song till the day when I see you again. So long.
Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on. Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on.
Yeah, the song is dedicated to the memory of my late mother Barbara. R.I.P. Mom. And to all the loved ones I lost in my life, both my grandmothers, my grandfathers, Auntie Florence, rest in peace. My homie Morose, so hard to sing this song, never forget you. But I love and miss you so long.
Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on. Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on. Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone when all is lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on. Living in pain when you're caught up in the rain. Life hanging by a thread, about to fade away. All hope is gone
lost. Miss you, but I know life must go on.
Banji bandaba na ye tebantegeera banji bantegeera na ye tebandaba banji bandaba na ye tebantegeera banji bantegeera na ye tebandaba banji bandaba na ye tebantegeera banji bantegeera na ye tebandaba banji bandaba na ye tebantegeera banji bantegeera na ye tebandaba ontegeera otya mubuuka sokosembere ngontunuulira ontya twali twesisinkanyeewa naye ekyo nga tonnakiddamu mbulira onzudde otya bubadde onoonya mbulira obuuzizza otya yana akutumya oyo akusudde ku kyokya sembera lekera okwemotyamotya weebuzaabuza tunula mu maaso toweetya abamu bamanyi nga rapa bamu bamanyi nga b-boy sibyowakana abamu bamanyi nga eddoboozi eryogerera omuntu owa wansi yonna gyendi abamu bamanyi nga yimba kyendi abalala bandabanda babuuza musomesa wuuyo abatamanyi bo bawuza fala wuuyo nakyo kinkolera kuba mbayita kuli talaba olwo abagamba nti nina amaasaana abiri gali maaso abiri gali mabega nkoto lwaki balowooza bwe batyo kuba nzinengera gyenva nejengenda banji bandaba naye tebantegeera banji bantegeera naye tebandaba 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 abafere bantya bwe bandaba bo tebaddamu kukyacankya bakirako bingubiridde mu kyenkya anti ndi mubufu obukodyo nina nkuyanja bategera waggulu nempita wansi ne banteeka ku kkono nempita ku ddyo mbaleka basembye kya bulijjo obukodyo bwe gaba mazzi ewange yewali ensulo ewange gyensulo olumu onoonya n'ombula olumu nsula nkola olumu nsiba ntabaalira ekumpi n'ewala sinti mbewala mirimu gyenkola gyanfula nantalabika ninga mazzi gansuwa banji bandaba naye tebantegeera banji bantegeera naye tebandaba 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 amagezi ganeesera abateesi baneesiga ate abagezigezi bo batandika okuneesiga kuba bakungula ebiva mu nsigo z'ensiga ate ab'omululu bo baswama bakerako ensega mujja kunzisa enseko kubandaba nze musumba olumu gotayawula mu ndiga nkulengera nga tondaba era nga sinnaba kulabika nsirika nga kwologopya tonnalabuka nsiterebuka ate era sitakibe nga sinnakikenenya ndusu nze ndi ku manduso n'olwekyo kakkana nkujje ekifu ku maaso bagamba ntyekuba omunaku tekya eyange yakya neyabalala nenjikeesa era bwenjagala nebakootulo n'obudde nenkeesa awakana kikyoteesa banji bandaba naye tebantegeera banji bantegeera naye tebandaba 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 Abrams Techa Eric Onassis on the beat Sylvester Kabombo Amalala gakuba ekigwo amalala gakuba ekigwo ennume y'ekigwo volume nyongere oba owamala awamala volume nyongere muko oba owamala nedda yongera mu volume nyongere oba owamala awamala volume nyongere muko oba owamala nedda yongera mu tula kalira ulize emboozi bulamu towalira byenkubulira passport nga kyali wange walakira ebyo byolepuka bijja kulakira kotandisa agaboozi kwaba basebekira okoze ekyene nnyo enzijja okuzibikira ojja kunakuwala kubalaba ku matikira babadde basebekira kati nga bakulembera n'akazindaalo nga batuyimbira vava ku malala temuli bibala bonagavirako ku ngalo emikwano gibalabala bulamu si butereevu busala ebigooli noyo noli ebizibu bitusimbira line ng'akasooli ozala ebika by'emmere bikulisa embooli nga weekwesa ebyo ozala wange obalabira mu kamooli otya okusongamu uyo kapooli gwe twayogerako wamachati 8 cent oli mu nyongere oba owamala awamala volume nyongere muko oba owamala nedda yongera mu volume nyongere oba owamala awamala volume nyongere muko oba owamala nedda yongera mu bwagula enzirusi atagula yazza musango lwaki ogiwalabanya ngago bwengo bagamba owebbango futumutegera ku mulyango kirizagana katugomukire totumenyera omwango pulire moroka tonna jikuta olinda yesu wanaalidde okugimanyira lekaleka bano batuuke nga banyirira lwaki obakuba ebizi oyagala batomera aga malala gasana kuluyira Sylvester ku ngoma rhymes nga nkwira I get the job done call me whatever you want to I hope to make you a person they look up to not to divide society into two input to there's nowhere you are going to mutuntu bulirira ne bulubaluba tu bulabwe mutomatu kankusibirire tu sijozanyise kugayanga meketu weketu mugande witu wetereze mwatu volume nyongere oba owamala awamala volume nyongere muko oba owamala nedda yongera mu volume nyongere oba owamala awamala volume nyongere muko oba owamala nedda yongera mu amalala gakuba ekigwo amalala gakuba ekigwo ennume y'ekigwo
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
in Uganda for very many years, and I believe Uganda is the place anybody should aspire to live in. We have good weather, we have abundance of food, we have abundance of employment as long as you look out for the right things. But Uganda has been hit in recent times with the stigma of greed, and it shows in everything that we read in the newspapers, it shows on television, it shows even when you're sitting down with people just trying to make ends meet. Everybody wants to bite off a piece that's bigger than what they deserve. That is Uganda's major problem in my eyes. If only we could curb the greed, if only we could share out that pie equally and of course responsibly, then we will be the best country on the planet. In the next 5 years, I really wish and hope that Ugandans can look at the bigger picture, can look at Uganda as a country, can look at their neighbors, their friends, and see that everybody needs equal opportunity. Because in the next 5 years, I don't want people to be calling me up saying, please, can you find me a job? I want people to be calling me up and saying, would you like to come and work with me? That is what I'd like to see. In the next 50 years, I don't want to see my child suffering. I want to see him prosperous. I want to see him with a good wife, with children, with a family of his own, living the dream. That's what I would like to see in Uganda. That's my honest opinion. And I'm Mark Kaheru, I'm Ugandan. What do you say?
Young people at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
Welcome to the Elders Wisdom Circle. My name is Eddie Okila, straight out of Kampala, the Pearl of Africa, to the rest of the world. We are serving the elders and the wisdom of the elders to the young. How are you all doing? All the followers and everyone who loves to chill and rock and roll with the elders. Welcome to the show. You will probably find this show very boring if you do not want to hear from the elders. If you're one of those people who say, they get into my nuts, they run me crazy, you don't know. Do not actually know what you're missing. You don't know how important is or are elders in our life. Sharing the heart of the elders at 54 years of age is the one and only Jaffa Raymond Amin, the son of the former President Idi Amin Dada. And just before we bring Jaffa on the show, I would like to tell you that the Elders Wisdom Circle on this day is very special. And the topic is, I am because we are. The cultural wholesomeness of sharing and caring for each other is very important going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, before I talk about the Ubuntu, I would like to bring the one and only, the son of the former President Idi Amin Dada, the third born son, the man with the wisdom of Amin, the man with the secret box of the former President Idi Amin Dada. Jaffa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
It's a pleasure.
And today, contrary, you're dressed like Baba.
This is Senator. Senator. But I tend to like the ones from Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a good shop.
Okay.
at Victoria Mall.
Yes.
And another one at Mabirizi. They always take care of me. Senator.
Yes. And we would like to say welcome to the Elders Wisdom Circle.
Thank you.
And we want to start with, first of all, I know we talked about it, the celebration around the former president of Tanzania and the things that he has said. Today on the show, we are seeing people celebrating when he says, get out of your comfort zone and go and work.
Wonderful.
And people are like, this is coming from the president. There are a lot of mixed reactions about the man, but actually he was a man of character, a man.
He was a driven. He was driven.
Yes.
And the drivenness, we don't ask this for everyone, but he had been suffering for 25 years with a heart problem.
Yeah.
So he understood that his life was finite.
Yes.
The fact that somebody can appreciate that life is finite, and we are not immortal, gives you that drive.
Wow.
So when you look back at his 6 years and what he accomplished, you just have to salute the man. I was listening to Lumumba, Professor Lumumba, and he was, I thought I was articulate, but Professor Lumumba, Lord have mercy. That Kenyan is as articulate as they come.
Yes.
A true African elder with a PhD to boot.
Wow. Well, Jaffa, I think that listening to all our elders and what has happened in Tanzania has been able to teach us a lot more. And if you're young and under the age of 40, 30, 25, 20, you need to be involved in the matters of our society, of our nation, going forward without having to insult the elders. You need to go to the elders and actually seek wisdom from the elders.
And have a conversation with them. But speaking to power.
Yes.
Because ordinarily in society, they are the purveyors of responsibility.
Absolutely true. Jaffa today on the show, and everyone joining us from all across the world, we're live on Twitter, we're live on Facebook, we're live on our YouTube channel, and we would like to say thank you very much for being a part of the Elders Wisdom Circle, growing bigger and better every single day, touching lives all around us and bringing the healing of our elders to our generation all across the world. And to all our African brothers, the stories of elders in Kampala, in Uganda, in East Africa is the same in Ghana, is the same in West Africa, is the same in Central Republic, is the same in South Africa, is the same in North Africa. We must continue to be connected with the elders. I want to say this, Jaffa, that in the world today, Africa continues to remain the place with the preservative, true, authentic, preservative nature of nuclear family.
Thank you very much.
And Africa is still holding that mantle.
The wholesomeness.
Yes. Of the nuclear family is still holding in Africa. What does that make you feel like?
Very proud, very affectionate about it, and I refuse to make the mistake the missionaries tried to instill in us, whether Arab or European, of learning to hate thyself. That's why I gave that beginning.
Yes. Yes, and I want to go through that. I am because we are the cultural awesomeness of sharing information and sharing ideas.
Once you accept who you are,
it
is very hard for somebody to come and actually try to unhinge you from having that culture of sharing. You can have that drive to succeed, but it should never become the selfishness that we call the religiousness of narcissism.
Wow.
You know?
Yes.
Which is overwhelming us people at political level, at family level. The minute you hear a hint from your wife, you're selfish, what you did was selfish. You pull back and realize you have to get back to what is, read that statement again.
Yes, and the statement is, I am because we are cultural awesomeness of sharing.
But that part at the beginning.
Yeah, it's very important. And I think that elders should not stop their role of continuous education, continuous imparting of knowledge to the
Yeah.
young going forward. That said, Jaffa, and to everyone out there, I would want to take you to the spirit of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
An anthropologist showed a game to the children of an African tribe.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, as he stated. And he placed a basket of delicious fruits near a tree trunk and told them, the first child to reach the tree will get the basket.
In the spirit of competition.
Yes.
We always think competition is good, but listen.
Including when he gave them the start signal. He was surprised that they were walking together holding hands until they reached the tree and shared the fruit.
The unexpected. When they look at savages and they see an almost angelic, unexpected goodness, wholesomeness.
Wow.
That was the moment of truth.
Yes. And when he asked them, why you did that when every one of you could get the basket only for him?
Self. I'd rather add for himself.
Yes, for himself.
That selfish thing.
Yes, and they answered with astonishment, Ubuntu.
They were actually shocked. Yes. How can a white man not even understand this? At the bedrock of values, of morality. Ubuntu. My tribe says Mutu when we're talking about Mutu. Mutu. We say Mutu. I say Mutu Laga.
Yes.
That man. Which is the same thing as Ubuntu.
Yes.
You know, language is universal.
Yes. And we got 54 dialect in Africa, and so really
in Uganda.
In Uganda alone, and so if Uganda alone has 54, if you put
half
together,
of them are Bantu.
Yes.
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Yeah.
And that's the spirit. And so he went to say that is how. And so he says that's how. That is. How can one of us be happy while the rest are miserable?
Remember, they're shocked
at
the immorality of the question, and they're answering it.
And they said, Ubuntu in their civilization means I am because we are together in it.
That's sharing.
Yes. I want to say this. That the indigenous people knows the secret of happiness that has been lost in all societies that transcend them and which considers themselves civilized society.
And they look down at us.
Exactly.
And they look down on us.
Which is what we often refer to as the
But every missionary who comes here finds the spiritual liveliness and wholesomeness that shames them. The ones who stay learn from it
and love it.
And love it. But there's some who keep coming and pressing, and they keep fighting about having a better education, but not learning from this story.
Wow.
I've had a similar situation. The first series we did with you, I kept telling you about this business of going to the village boastfully with your 50,000 worth of salt. I call it poisonous salt, poisonous sugar, poisonous processed oil, and feeling great at providing. Lo and behold, when you're returning at the weekends, at the week's end, they give you produce worth 500,000. When you get home and you're really offloading the produce, that Ubuntu, the sense of sharing, the appreciation for that salt, for that sugar, for that processed oil, the rewards are astronomical. And the multiplier effect is Ubuntu at its finest. And that's what actually pressed me to learn about ourselves, because I realized, my God, shame on you. What is your 50 when they can give you 500,000 in a week? Something that will last you probably for 1 month.
Yes.
Not going to Safeway, not going to ShopRite, not going to Game Store, not going to Carrefour, you know? But organic food that we consider expensive. That's the irony.
Which is actually very expensive.
It is. Oh my God. Huh?
So the irony of that
Yes.
is that the ability of our people not to realize
the selfless sharing.
Yes, not to realize that what we are sharing
Mhm.
selflessly is actually more valuable. It's
Much
because-
more.
Yes, it's
1,000
because
times much more.
the abundance of it here
Yes.
is given to us by the Most High. That the soil
Thank you.
represents.
Do you know how we run away from rain?
Yes.
Some people told me, no, just stand in it and take it, soak it up.
Yes.
It's free. The Almighty gives us that
Yes.
freely. learn that is the sense of sharing.
Yes. That God can say, abundance I have, and so receive.
And people never talk about this, but I'm bringing a concept to this, and that's the reason I gave you that funny name at the end. African capitalism, where we share while we're gaining.
Yes.
Not the greed, not the narcissism of yanje. I was making people in the taxi laugh. I said the head of state wakes up and goes yanje, a fear of loss.
Yes.
Chimurumira, yange. You wake up a fear of loss.
Yes.
Even the fear of losing your beloved wife to another is a constant. Ubuntu teaches us to relax.
Wow.
Because we have it in abundance.
Yes.
Today we're very spiritual.
Yes, and a deep conversation. I want you to hold it right there. We're going for a break, and when we come back, Jaffa and I are going to be taking you through for the next 35 minutes of the show. We're going to be talking about the spirit of I am because we are, and the culture of some sharing of the stuff. Like when you go to the village and Jaffa say you give 5 kilos of sugar and you come back with a truck and a trunk full of fresh fruits.
Worth 500,000.
What's the equation right now? We'll be right back after
Ubuntu.
Yes.
The equation is Ubuntu. Sharing.
Then that's what the circle. Will be right back after the break.
Been in Uganda for very many years, and I believe Uganda is the place anybody should aspire to live in. We have good weather, we have abundance of food, we have abundance of employment as long as you look out for the right things. But Uganda has been hit in recent times with the stigma of greed, and it shows in everything that we read in the newspapers. It shows on television. It shows even when you're sitting down with people just trying to make ends meet. Everybody wants to bite off a piece that's bigger than what they deserve. That is Uganda's major problem in my eyes. If only we could curb the greed, if only we could share out that pie equally and of course responsibly, then we will be the best country on the planet. In the next 5 years, I really wish and hope that Ugandans can look at the bigger picture, can look at Uganda as a country, can look at their neighbors, their friends, and see that everybody needs equal opportunity. Because in the next 5 years, I don't want people to be calling me up saying, please, can you find me a job? I want people to be calling me up and saying, would you like to come and work with me? That is what I'd like to see. In the next 50 years, I don't want to see my child suffering. I want to see him prosperous. I want to see him with a good wife, with children, with a family of his own, living the dream. That's what I would like to see in Uganda. That's my honest opinion. And I'm Mark Kaheru, I'm Ugandan. What do you say?
Young people at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
Welcome back from the break. This is the Elders Wisdom Circle. In the studio is myself, Eddie Okila, and Jaffa Remo Amin, the third born son of Idi Amin Dada. We believe that this man has the wisdom of Amin. We also believe that Amin deposited some of his secrets, deep-seated secrets, on his third born son. Just like Jacob did it to Joseph at some point, and Joseph was the heir to the throne. Could this be the case in Amin's house? Jaffa, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for that one.
So we have to keep trying to break down the mystery behind Amin and you and the family of Amin with our 60 children. We don't know which one, but we seem to be guessing that you could be the mystery child.
Can I give something to that point?
Yes, yes.
I got pretty angry about our properties not coming back to us.
Yes.
And I was really becoming forceful and wanting to live the high life back in Kololo, you know?
Yes.
But he told me, De Malta Dunya, these are worldly things. He would say, this are worldly things.
Yes.
Do you know how that shames you back into your shell? You are going full throttle to become very demanding. You know, I call it the Biaffe syndrome.
Yes.
Demanding. But he was reminding me, these are worldly things.
Wow.
He's the type of person who, when the people had decided that the Cadillac, the expensive cars, they were all parked at Nakasongola. They were loading them onto a Hercules to take them to Libya. He finds out, he said, no. Take those cars out of there. Where are you taking them? Now, others would have loaded them up like the Gambian president. He loaded his cars to exile. He needed his Hummer. He needed his Rolls Royce. He needed things. So sometimes my selflessness becomes a hindrance because I learned from the best who learned to let go.
Yes. That said, Jaffa, and we want to discuss the issue of I am because we are. Can you just break this statement to us? Ubuntu keeps saying I am because we are.
Yeah.
Can you just break that up right now for us?
Without that 1%, we wouldn't be. My parents are me. I am my parents. The day I get my degree is the day I start looking down at my parents who sold their goats to take me to school.
Dug themselves.
That is the moment where instead of embracing them, we tend to start becoming very, for me, I have my books moments. if you can understand, I am me because we are, that keeps you in check. Me being told by my mother, you like your stepmothers, but I'm your mother. She was basically trying to say, they're classier than I am, but I am your mother. One person, no, we're talking about God. I'm like, you just went 2 weeks. But you speak like British. For me, I'm American. God. I'm just trying to say that this statement is so important in identity.
Please put that stop. Let's put that up there so that you guys can see it. It's
I am because we are. The cultural wholesomeness of sharing comes in you knowing who you are. Those children chasing the chicken just before you set off for Kampala, they bring it with all the, like Chicken George or Rambo. No, who's it? Sylvester Stallone as the boxer. Rocky chasing the chicken to get it for you so that Eddie gets it back to Kampala. That infinite sense of sharing comes from actually love and acceptance of who you are. Me, that's the reasoning behind.
Wholesomeness of sharing.
I use my word. I know everybody thinks about it. African capitalism. I'm tired of listening to capital socialism because they use it as a dirty word in the West. What we got from the Magufulis at the tail end of Nyerere's revolution was African socialism. But if China can transcend that and become a command capitalist, ours should be African capitalism, where we can share while earning from it.
I wanted to, while you share that about the Africa, and then I want to bring this together. Most African countries today have closed their borders to their own fellow Africans.
See that marriage, people? There are only about 5 regions.
But these regions have elders. The West African have elders, and elders always sit together. Ironically, our cultures actually work together. Our cultures
we are cohesive.
The food we eat are cohesive. The food we eat are similar. And the way we relate with each other are very similar.
It's the same.
There's the similarity between the things that we say we do is who we are. We are black.
The danger is the colonial languages. Francophones looking down on the Anglophones who look down on the Germans. I was trying to explain to somebody that, look, actually a Murundi lady was the first president in the region. They said, but she's not from our region. Then I answered the gentleman that, tell that to the Germans who learns Latin fastest, who learns Arabic fastest, is more wholesome. It was a way of breaking us away from who we are. With slavery, remember the Toby? The man was Kunta Kinte, but was being whipped into submission to accept a slaver's name. I find my good friends in the West, I'm talking about Western Ugandan, they like using Western surnames. You hear somebody called Johnson Biaruhanga. I'm like, you have double surname. He said, no, that's my Christian name. I'm like, no, that Johnson is a surname. And then Biaruhanga.
I don't know whether I have the same name, but I have Okila. And I have Eddie, so...
but Edward is a Christian.
So I want to go to my friend Onyaito Deke and Diwato Chom.
Yes,
change their names and want to swap
Pan-Africanists.
The next one is Pastor Senpai. He says, I want to change my name from Sempa to Baba Gwanga.
No, but his Sempa is perfect. Yes, Sempa. You Uganda. That one is a gere. Those ones came. Those ones are Banyoro.
He said no.
Royals are Banyoro. Royals are Banyoro.
But his father is
Royals.
His father is an Indian,
Ah.
and his mother is a Uganda girl.
Ah.
But he got married at...
No, there's some people. my grandfather
Jaffa has arrived.
My grandfather,
Yes.
Rajab.
Yes.
We don't say uncle or great uncle. No. One father was called Rajab, the other one was called Amin.
Yes.
Every time my grandfather would wash ablution and get ready to go to the mosque on Friday like we did today, villagers will come and say, Yango! That's his name. Yango! He said, don't call me that savage, abominable name. He'd go back and take ablution. He would end up doing it 5 times. But the
Whenever
villagers were having,
having a ball.
They were having, including his daughters. Yango! Astaghfirullah. That's like, I seek refuge in the name of the Almighty. How can you call me that?
With children, with a family of his own, living the dream. That's what I would like to see in Uganda. That's my honest opinion. And I'm Mark Kaheru, I'm Ugandan. What do you say?
Young people at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way.
Africa. It's because our elders defined them for us. It's because the elders, those who came before us and left before us, have done something greater than we have not done ourselves. So we must learn from them and move forward. Therefore, the foray into the elders' life needs some really great insights. I would like to welcome Jaffa back on the show.
Thank you.
And Jaffa, we're going to hasten to the close, and I want to take you to the wisdom of our elders back in the days. Taught them how to survive when they go to hunt. And they hunted.
But lo and behold, if you had not come with a crowd of your people, helpers from the village, by the time you get back to the village, the hyenas would have feasted on the 1 ton. Or the 950 tons left in the wilderness. So it taught them to actually bring the wives, 20 wives, sisters, and other helpers to come and share and transport the benefit of their sweat. But in the beginning, it was constantly fighting off animals that would want a share of whatever provisions you have actually brought sustenance to the area. Yeah? So if you see us doing gugus, we call them gugus. The how do you call them? The food storage granaries.
Yes, the granaries.
That taught us that sense of preservation.
By the way, we want to just say to people that the granaries that we're talking about here no longer exist, but the elders' wisdom circle is going to go on a hunt to find the granaries, whether in Western Uganda, Eastern Uganda, Northern Uganda.
The challenge is this, where mothers come, they cut the palm fronds, and they build they built for you a granary right in front of your eyes. It's like knitting, because they're using palms and palms.
Yes.
You know, it preserves better.
Yes.
Put the platform, setting it with the. Now, there's an architect from West Nile called Waswa Primo. He has useful names.
Yes.
Primo. You wonder where it comes from.
Japan. I drive Primo.
Waswa has built an 8-storied design for a cultural center, which we want to build in every region of Uganda and multiply it 15 times, and try to do that to every location in the whole of Africa. I want to introduce that to Baba Professor Lumumba, because we're together in an ironic...
Because they changed their names back to Onyaito Deke, Diwato Cho.
Learning to love yourself.
Yes, and that's a cool stuff.
Yeah, remember the girls who came last week? I hope you really go get a show for them. There's a part that Americans did to us that we are not doing to ourselves. They would always say, I am somebody. You might not love who I am, but I am somebody.
Yes.
I am somebody. It became a chant for us, the people who are Black Panthers. I am somebody. that looking in the face that we were talking about two shows earlier.
Yes.
Learning to love ourselves comes out very beautifully with the Ubuntu statement. I am because we are.
Please put that topic up there, and we're going to ask Jaffa the last question as we hasten to the close of the show today. We are talking about, put it up there. We want to keep it up on the screen for some time so people can see it. I am because we are, the cultural wholesomeness of sharing. And we're talking about the Ubuntu. And I always talked about, if we do not give ourselves a chance to live and to breathe, the things that are very important to us, we're going to lose ourselves in the process of transition.
That is it.
And if our elders are not preserving our cultures or writing about it, we are going to lose our sense of identity. Jaffa, we suffer the biggest sense of identity as a country.
Yes.
As a continent.
Yes.
The biggest problem we have is our sense of identity has been confused. It's a fluid, Onyaito Deke says it's fluid in this generation that we don't understand what we stand for. Who am I? What am I? What are the values that define me as a person? Is lost. We need elders in the fireplace to tell us this. Why and how can we put back our identity? Where can we find the elders who can speak life and sense back to us?
Let me give you there's an epicenter here of the 10 lost tribes, because for us we only have, he was telling me strange things, we only have the Benjamins and the Judas. Those two are the only ones who went back home. The rest are here. And he pointed the location. I'm like, wow! Science also teaches that the same thing, that the same location is where the highest concentration of genetic makeup of the whole humanity. And I'm like, I am because we are. That is the moment of accepting. I saw that in the 70s with Jamaicans. Do you still live in trees? I'm like, what? I said, where did the Queen live when she came in 1954? Oh no, we have typical Dinka. Now, we can tell that.
Yes.
So when they come and learn to listen, I have friends who come, superstars by the way, they come and sit at the source of the Nile.
Yes.
And they're like, Jaffa, we're going to fly in, play. You set up a landing strip here. I said, Madvani has one there, but it's only for sugar.
Yes.
But can you imagine the history? Why should only Ghana get the return back to Africa when there's the source of the Nile in Uganda? Ajarova, are you listening? Half Italian you? That is it. The return back to Africa.
Yeah.
Americans are loving Africa.
gmail.com, and we will be able to give you the card. But tell us the comment, what have you learned from your elder?
And we need Bedford and Professor Lumumba to get in on this.
Ladies
because
and gentlemen, yes.
I was blown away for the first time I ever heard on a panel a man speaking for 3 minutes, and to me it spoke to my heart, the heartbeat of Africa. And I'm like, Professor Lumumba, where you at? Where you at?
We're tossing and
He
getting out of the
belongs.
Butler's
He
Wisdom
belongs
Circle,
on the
right?
Elders
Yes,
Wisdom Circle.
Circle.
You might have to go to his place.
Yes, to get him. We will find Professor Lumumba.
No, go to his source.
Yes, and we will all.
That's the kind of mindset that I see, and it's about self. So if you ask me, am I a leader? By the grace of God, I am a leader, and I am growing as a leader. And I thank God for that privilege of being a leader. And who is a leader to me? It's very simple. Someone that has a vision, but is also someone that is there serving people. For me, that's a leader. Vision is where you want to take things, serve them. Because at the end of the day, whatever we do must make a difference in people's lives. Anybody who has had huge impact in history, in leadership, the impact is not measured by just the things they did, but what those things did for people's lives. Did they make a difference? Being TV, and particularly for being a part of the CEO bench, talking about leadership. You know what, friends? Leadership can be tough. Leadership can be lonely, and the dynamics of leadership keep changing. I want to encourage you, watch the CEO bench so that you can get to hear real practical tips on leadership from people who are actually practicing leadership. Once again, thank you for being a part of the CEO bench right here on House of Talent Television.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface.
Why you think about what you're going to do, how you're going to go about it? What are the problems that you want to solve? How do you turn around the negativity around you by creating a product that will solve that problem? Do you see problems around you? Do you know how to solve the problem? There are people who wake up every day and every single day in the morning to think about the ideas that will change the world. They are called creative minds. Everyone is born with a DNA of creativity, and everyone has the DNA of creating something that will change the world. Are you thinking? Are you creating? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, and this week on the program, We focused on
still struggling with the opportunities to work. I love the idea of creativity in terms of getting work done by artificial intelligence, but also you worry about those that are not able to get jobs, that they are going to be running out. The pandemic has really given us a challenge to see that we are going to be working differently and engaging people differently. So this whole moving around is really, for me, it gives us personally a challenge to start thinking a bit more on how do I sustain my career. Otherwise, I'll run out. I might be replaced by a robot.
Wow. We want to just take a moment to,
as well as the online engagement of our audience. So there's going to be a very much hybrid version of doing things. Yeah.
Wow. You who are watching the show from anywhere across the world, we want to hear your opinion. Do you think that the world will ever go back to where we used to be? Do you think human-to-human interactions will ever get back to where we used to be? Do you think we're going to have physical contacts again? Hugs, A world where there is no hug, there is no shaking hands would be a very difficult world. Yeah. Even animals relate to each other, and that will be very difficult for us going forward. But Faisal, let's dive into our discussion, from that recap you've given us about your experiences driving and traveling across the world. Today's topic, if we may put the topic up there, is about how do we have the audacity to continue, the audacity of hope to continue creating even in the pandemic situation. And I'm talking about the creativity of us thinking about the things that we need to do. Can you just keep the topic up, team, so that we can just have a moment to recap on that one day. Creative Industry Talk topic today is about the audacity of hope to be creative in this pandemic situation. We're talking about the creative mind. The audacity there is that the ability of a human being to continue thinking creativity, to continue thinking ahead of time, and the hope that if I continue to create even in this pandemic situation, I will still be able to be rewarded for my creativity. I will pay. What are your thoughts on that one, to start with the topic itself?
I think, it's a good thought, and based on the conversations that we've had around from different creatives, there has been a very strong, despite the odds and whatever is going on with the artists, many of the creatives have really continued to create work. So they have had that resilience, they have had that audacity, as you can call it, to continue being, keeping their minds at busy at work and developing content. They are stuck in their homes. So there is that also balance in terms of like those who are able to, the writers are writing, the playwrights are writing, but there are those who have to go into the field and their content is really based on them being out there. They can't, and I think that's a big challenge.
Wow. Faisal, talking of the mental capacity and the mental situation of artists during the creation process, a lot of people are finding it very difficult. They have been in a lockdown for so long, and the creative people are not good at
those that get the support. I think the creative arts are not really looked at as the vulnerable. They don't have to be, because we are creatives. We can figure out things. But in such a situation where people are really locked down, I think they needed support more than anything before, and I think the confinements that they're living in are very challenging, because most of them live in shared rooms, shared homes. There is not really much space for them to feel free. There's not also no room for recovery. Sometimes when you are in situations like this, you need some space. You need to be alone. You need to be somewhere to be yourself, or to figure out things.
Still creating? If you're not, what are you doing in this time? Are you changing your career, or you're saying, no, I will continue to push my work out? And how are you publishing your work, or how are you getting your work out? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going for a break, and when we come back, we want to hear from you, how you're doing it. This is the Creative Industry Talk.
young people at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's book face. Why?
Welcome back to the program. My name is Eddie Okela, and my guest this morning is Faisal Chiwewa, who is the founder and, of course, the artistic director of Bayimba International Foundation. You know, here in Kampala. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
You have been traveling quite a bit, and the first part of the show, you were telling us your experience of what you have been seeing wherever you are in your travel. And the topic of discussion which we want to really dig deep into right now, Faisal, is about the audacity of hope for people to continue creating and being creative in this pandemic situation, even when we're in the lockdown.
People have started to realize that you cannot just sit down, even if you're just creating content for the future. You need to share something. You need to come out and show people that you're still alive. Otherwise, we will think that you were taken by COVID. But also, I think what I realized, like when I was attending a festival in Germany, I think last month, one of the things I realized that was very interesting is that people find ways to get themselves, active. And the most fascinating thing was, like, we attended a premiere of a production, it was a puppetry production that was done by the Bax Theatre, Puppetry Theatre from Cape Town. And they had 35 people who were working on this production. It's a very beautiful puppetry production. 2.5 hours. And they said with COVID, so they could not festival, they could not cancel the opening. So what they did, they had to stream the entire production, and they had to invest. So it was a whole new invention for them to sit in the artscape in Cape Town to do the entire production and then stream it live. As they're doing it with the whole new setup of technology, cameras, inserts and all that stuff. And we were seated in a hall in Düsseldorf, 250 people watching a production that is being done live. They didn't have an audience, but we were this way, they were that way, and they made it happen, and we all enjoyed it. I didn't even feel that they were not there. I felt like, because it was a very big,
the driving, the steering wheel and the tires and all of the things, so that when you sit in this car, you feel comfortable while driving this car. Those people are still creating stuff. The question is, will the world continue to consume this thing from them if this situation of the pandemic continues, Faisal?
Yeah, it depends on what you're creating and for what audience. I mean, look at what Richard Branson did, going to space for 1 hour, and now they are opening it up for the rest of the world for $280,000 to go and just spend an hour in space, So I think we can't stop innovating, because the need for products and services are always going to be there. The need for minds to see different things. We love, as humans, we love color, we love to be challenged, we love to be surprised. So we cannot just, get comfortable with what we know or what we have. And for me, that's one of the challenges I find here. I talked about some time ago about how I'm always surprised to see that come out is something new, something innovative. So here we've not been very lucky to have this, but you also don't blame the people, because there is no support system. When for doctors, they are always supported to, they have research budgets, and they sit down and they are not worried about rent or kids going to school. But for creatives, there is no support system. So you cannot put your life for 5 years researching about new shoes, because you want to put a product out, yet you don't have someone to pay for your rent that day. So this is where the challenges are, and we need to investigate how can we create some sort of structures and systems that are going to help our young people, our creative minds, to be at ease when they're working. I was talking to one of my friend, Goretti Chomhendo.
Legal practice itself. Now, the question is, do you need somebody, or does one need somebody to give them hope to continue creating because somebody is going to buy, or you can see a gap in the market like Senson is always doing. He's made open shoes from the tires, used vehicle
Bags
tires,
and
bags from the tires. I find him very creative. And are there people who will always buy that? Yes. And how much is it? Are there the market for it? Do you need somebody to take you somewhere to create that? Or you can actually have the hope to say, if Faisal is dressing like this, I think I can give Faisal this hope to be able to have this. What do you think?
I think, you know, the into other opportunities. They're really trying to cultivate other ways of earning revenue, and it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. But I don't think the issue is like people need to be inspired. Oh yes, people can be inspired. Eddie, you can inspire people like you do with except me, you failed to get me to the gym. Someone told me today that, oh, Faisal, you go to the gym. I'm like, no. Yes. But you inspire people to work out, to get their bodies physically fit, and that's it can also be a creative way. But maybe you could say like, if Eddie is doing this gymming and stuff, like, what can I create for him to be as an artist? What can I get him to be that much people spend in the bars, in the restaurants, on the concerts? What do they eat? What do they like to eat? Where do they like to spend their time between 5 and 6? So that when you're planning the city, you can understand that between this time and this time,
they like to go in this place.
People like to go to this place. Maybe not a particular place, but people like to do this. People like to go to they like this kind of music. So that you have an idea of your city and how people use it. And that's when you're adding into new buildings or authorizing new buildings, you can advise people who are building, not to just build malls and stuff. You can tell them, you know what, according to the trend of people, the way they go out, the way they use the city, the way they engage, these are the things that we would recommend for you to add into your building. You know what I mean? So it's also an issue of research that maybe artists or creatives or even authorities don't put in place first to say that this is how we need people to do. This is where the trend is going.
Assumption of your project. Stay right there. Creative Industry Talk. We'll be right back after this break.
Attack you, they vilify you, and the goal is to weaken you financially, is to weaken your honor. These are slanderers. So I'm glad that someone would stay up at night to ask and learn about me. And I pray that in the next 2 months, because I know many
setting up the company, you're doing tours all across the world. A personal account is great, but how these things are taxed becomes important for your business later on. As soon as you cross that threshold of 50 million a year, you're now in
the interest become more shares.
Yes.
On the road, I see the traffic, so I'm creating a lot more things right now. And so I asked him, so the audacity of hope that when you create things in this time, people are going to buy is amazing. And are people going to buy this thing? Yes and no. So Faisal, back to you. You're also having the hope that if you launch Humva Creatives, and we want to first of all know what is Humva Creatives, and what is the platform all about? Do you have this artist who have this hope to continue creating the art pieces that are going to go selling? What is Humva Creatives to start with?
Humva Creative is a platform that we've been working on since April last year, when we went into the lockdown. there was that whole...
Was it born out of lockdown situation?
There was that whole, period of supporting artists, we needed to support ourselves. We started this platform. And UMVA is a kind of like a rebellious system, which is really looking at UMVA itself. It means a universal method for value access, meaning that we want to make sure that all the artists have access to money, direct revenue, without middlemen. And this is also a very good, so it's kind of like a cryptocurrency software that we've built. You get if you sell your painting, you get your cash. There's no middleman trying to do what, take 40% at whatever. You're transacting with your own revenue.
Say, for example, if I want to buy an art piece from Pfizer Chihuahua, am I able to order direct and say yes?
You order that because you see the piece, you see it on the platform, then you order it. The artists get their money instantly. Not again, Pfizer send me a check or invoice. No, the money comes. So what happens when it's delivered to you, you use it, you take it back, you pay, and that money goes direct to the artist. So that in that way, you have an opportunity to have a different scene every time you're doing your show. You can do it for your office, you can do it for your home, you can do it for events, those people who have events or weddings or functions where they need to have different works. And also the other thing is that many people don't have Ugandan art. We are now trying to figure out the costing of how much can we sell this work? Because you have to value. The pricing is very difficult. I'm telling you, I've been having this conversation for like a month. How much do we price this work? But we are trying to figure out that how can Ugandans afford to buy this work? Because we all love art. In I mean, it's very good you asked this question because during our research process, when we were researching this platform, what it's going to do, this version that we're doing, we had a lot of engagements with artists. And actually, I learned a lot. I mean, I've been doing with art for the past 20 years. But even still, I'm still learning. And I learned a lot through this process because our first focus was on the visual art, the paintings, and then we realized that, we also have the sculptors, we have the interior designers. And most of the artists are they do these things double, like Edward Wadimba. He's a very nice, batik. He does quite some batik, but he also does a lot of nice paintings. But he also does furniture. He does beds. There's this hotel here, which is 99, is it 900 something? Somewhere on Kisementi. He designed everything there. And I was like, are you sure? And he took me around and said the beds, the furniture, the chairs. You might think it was ordered on... you need to start understanding also that furniture, design is not always about designing something in your studio and then you want someone to bring a truck and then carry it the way. No, we need to start moving forward. We need to put the work out. We also need to make it much more easier for people, but also thinking in terms of the spaces, because most of the time we don't, and I don't blame the artists, because we don't have standard spaces in Uganda. No, serious. We don't have standard spaces. You cannot say, in Europe.
But the artist needs to come up with the design of the standard spaces.
No. But in Europe, there are standard spaces. A bedroom has to be this size. And the artists know, the people who do furniture know that according to the standards of construction. But here, all beds are 6x5 or 4x4, or you cannot get another bed of your style. It's difficult. So it makes it very difficult for people who are, living in small spaces to really enjoy the work of, an artist. Of an artist who, who doesn't have, who has no idea of how these spaces are being arranged. So there's still that problem. If we could standardize spaces, and then artists can also be more flexible in terms of like, okay, how do I make things to fit into people's spaces? The minimalism, but also the experimental work of making sure that works are not just for those people who have space.
Wow. Well, we are on the creative industry talk, and we're talking about the audacity to remain creative in the lockdown situation or in a pandemic situation, when there is COVID-19 pandemic situation. Of course, a lot of artists are depressed at the moment and they are not creating stuff. more people to continue being, hopeful, not being hopeless in this pandemic situation, to do much greater stuff than we used to do before?
I think for me, the sad thing is always to see how people run away so easily, because everyone wants to go out. I want to go to America. I want to go to the UK. I'm like, you want to go there and enjoy what people have worked hard for, instead of contributing. I really think there is a very little spirit of contribution here. People don't see how they can make an effort to be contributive to the growth of our country. And they always want to get things easily. They want to get quick money. They want to, that's why they all run to America. We've lost so many artists. And then you find, one time I was really saddened to see a dancer, I will not mention his name. It was challenging them to think beyond what they know or what the teacher is giving them. And also, children who have grown up now, learning, knowing that I can go, I don't know what they call it, tebacha ina nyomalo. No, seriously, tebacha ina nyomalo, because they can go to the mall and it's very, of course, when you go with your kid to a restaurant, let's say Cafe Javas, and you give them food and they take a picture, that one they still have a long way to go. But if you find a kid to have a pizza or whatever, they're not going to take a picture of that pizza because I have
it's not a very big deal to have a pizza. Whether I have it or not, it's okay.
And when that generation, when it grows, it's going to change a lot of things, because you realize that they don't, even if they don't have money, they're not going to think around, oh, what is exciting, They will work towards to make things. You have to see the system and the structure that they have been raised in that does not support the minds that we need at this time.
Wow. Are you a creative mind? Are you thinking creatively? Do you still have the authority within yourself to create something? Do you have hope, or you become hopeless because of the pandemic situation? Are you struggling with thinking? Perhaps you need to, surround yourself with people who are thinking positively and look at the problems around you. Look at how you can be part of the solution of that problem. If you're not able to get out of that space to do something, most probably you are not going to be successful. So those who have the audacity of hope to keep moving out is taken away from him. And he now feels like he wants to commit suicide. So I told him, well, committing suicide won't solve the problem, but what is most probably going to happen to you is that you have abdicated the duty of thinking for what you can do and the power to others. How can artists take back that power to them and begin to do it as we wind up the show, Faisal?
Yeah, but I think, Eddie, we have to be honest. We are all going through a lot. We can be here and just, people sometimes they see you walking and they think, Eddie has
everything is normal, yes.
We all have our issues to deal with. But what makes it different is that you wake up in the morning and put yourself together and say, I'm going to go and work, or I'm going to go and write, I'm going to...
And of course, the program has come to an end. And we want to say thank you very much, everybody who has been following the show all across the world. Thank you very much to Faisal for always coming and sharing with us, a lot of wisdom coming from his experiences. And he's been traveling. He's just given you an understanding of, what happened in Germany when a South African production house and Creative Minds could not be in Germany because they were all tested positive, but they presented, the audacity of hope. That's what you're talking about, to continue being creative even in the pandemic situation is the perfect match and a perfect fit.
Taking risks,
And taking risk. If you're not taking risk, it's going to be very difficult for us to...
People really fear to take risks.
Yes.
They are always worried about, oh my God, what am I going to do? I think we take risks every day. I mean, and I think for me it means that you're taking a risk to be relevant. We need to be relevant. We cannot just die and pass by. We are not birds.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Faisal, and thank you very much, everybody, for being a part of the creative industry talk, growing big and better. Until next week, we are live on House of Talent. Website www.houseoftalentuganda www.houseoftalentug.com is live right there. You can be a part of the conversation. Keep the conversation coming on Facebook, House of Talent Uganda, and on Twitter at HTV1. Until then, we want to say thank you and stay safe, stay creating, keep the hope alive. Edio Killer, Faiza Chiwewa, signing out.
That's the kind of mindset that I see, and it's about self. So if you ask me, am I a leader? By the grace of God, I am a leader, and I am growing as a leader. And I thank God for that privilege of being a leader. And who is a leader to me? It's very simple. Someone that has a vision, but is also someone that is there serving people. For me, that's a leader. Vision is where you want to take things. You have to have a vision, and at the end of the day, you are serving people. It doesn't change. Leadership is leadership, whether it is at what we would call a lower level or a top level. Leadership is leadership. It's about influence. It's that influence that comes from you have a vision and you are serving people. So what changes is the level of responsibility, but the other one that people don't like is the level of accountability. You see, Jesus said, to whom much is given, much will be required. So the only difference is there.
Disappearing while he's here on the Family Talk Show, but today he decides to go out and do an assessment of the cows and how much milk they produce. So he's out there in Barara, the land of milk and honey, trying to do an assessment. But we are here. The Family Talk Show is here. My name is Hassan, and the pastor, the big pastor, is also here. So it's going to be the two of us talking family. And this week, the topic is something that you have really been looking out for and asking us about it. We are going to be talking, what is the difference between leading a family and heading?
On us there, he went with the line.
No, we are streaming live on Facebook, House of Talent Uganda on Facebook, and on YouTube, House of Talent Uganda. You can also find us on Twitter at HTV1 on Twitter, HTV1 Uganda on Twitter. This is the Family Talk Show. Pastor, how was the week?
The week brings me to one of the points I wanted to say is we are sad that a powerful leader or head of state, and maybe that will run into
I don't want to say head of state.
Yes, John Pombe.
But also, as the week ended, the news that the Traffic and Road Safety Act is going to be revised to include an old tax. They're bringing back an old tax called road license. And I kept wondering, okay, one of the reasons why the tax was removed because they wanted more indirect taxes on fuel. That they would make more money on fuel. Now they're bringing back the same old tax. So will the fuel tax go away?
No, it won't go away, and the fuel tax will continue. Where they said tax whoever is driving, of course there were other units of people that who are going to benefit from those who are using generators and the rest. And now that electricity is running, so less fuel I think is going. So we need to go back to, and our roads are dying. And you see, you guys have been saying the roads in Tanzania are well paved, the ones in Kivuli, but I think we should be working on making more money.
For me, it's going to be a big debate on especially double taxation on the same unit. But,
those debates, are they debates? to me, what I really want, is the president to sign out the bill on parliament, not parliament, NSSF. So that what we've been saving before we get to eat.
Hopefully, the president will accept to sign midterm access because NSSF is a big resource for running.
Yeah, but they're not even talking about midterm. That's late term. The people they're talking about are not in their mid.
It's late.
Yes, it's late term access.
Maybe the journalists, the media coined the term midterm because it never existed.
Okay.
It was only at the end of retirement. That's when you'd get money. So now they call it midterm. Okay. To dive into, understand these two words, leading and heading a family.
Heading. Okay. I think we need to get this context right, because I think sometimes where we go wrong is we forget to understand that family is organic in nature, but also is, what do I call it? Not mechanic, because it's mechanic, but it's an institution. Family is an institution that must be recognized legally and also morally. And so the functions of an institution. And so when you talk about leadership and headship, I'm thinking we're talking in terms of, yes, there ought to be somebody who takes decisions or who is held accountable for the decisions made in that family. And then there also ought to be leadership. And so traditionally it's the father or the mother, no, not the mother, the father who is second in command is the mother, then the firstborn, and then we go on to the bottom. It's assumed that the lastborns, those ones, unless they've cleared the others. So, but leadership, again, like you said, has to do with who is giving vision and direction. That's my understanding. And some people talk about leadership, who has the power and who has the influence. I think leadership has to do with who influences, headship has to do with who has the power. Sounds very theoretical, very classical, but I think we need to first get back. Every family needs a leader. Yes, so again, what do we mean by family? Again, the days we live in, there's the, what's the technical term NSSF? It says there's the immediate family, and for us, immediate family was father, mother, husband, wife, and children, aunties and uncles. But then the English people defined it to mean your husband and wife and children, biological or legal. This, my brother grew up with me, that is not your immediate family. So they will not get insurance, they will not get any benefits attached to them in the whole process. So I think that's why the mix up now
the
begins.
Selfish definition.
Yes.
We would say a selfish definition. Headship for me, when you get to understand head of a family, because the context now becomes religious. Okay?
I think it has to do with us defining what is the source or foundation of family. Yes. Because again, in the world we live in now, there are many sources these days, all right? So, and I think family has become a battleground. Who defines family? In others, who creates family? And so when we talk about a head of the family, because again, because of the trouble in the world, we have child-headed family, single mother-headed family, we have a single father-headed family, then I think no headed family. Those ones are, there's a difference between authority and power. Okay? The one with authority has been voted in, has been sworn in, and people have said this is our person. All right? But the other side to it is that he may have gotten all the vote, all the swearing in, like I think Kibaki sworn in quickly, so that Odinga doesn't overtake him. All right? And so they've said, and people are funny, we have the president of the people, then the president of the state, confusing things.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, they've also come in family, where you have the head who is the man, and then the leader who is the woman. So
it gets confusion. Most times when people use the word head of family, it's often attached to a male head. Okay?
With all due respect, definitely obvious. All right? And the systems were in place. But we've twisted them. It was obvious, if Joshua dies, somebody will take over. There's a heir. And the duties of the heir are clearly stated. All right? And the way the family functions, if the father or the husband is not there, it's automatic the wife takes over. All right? And taking over as in will lead. Like if we are flying a plane, when the pilot dies, the co-pilot takes over.
Exactly.
It's not something that is discussed. All right? It's obvious. Just like TAP in Tanzania, president dead, vice president. Whether she's a woman, whether you voted for her, whether... No, she is the president. But they are coming for that.
Okay, this
unless
is
you say Amina.
This Amina is a name.
Yes. Unless you change Amina to Amina, you're going to have trouble. You wait. I'm not a prophet.
This is the Family Talk Show. It's myself, Hassan Sekajolo, and Pastor Joshua Mugabi. We're discussing this not so much looked at concept of heading a family and leading a family. That's what we're discussing. We want you to find out at the end of the show, are you heading your family? Are you leading your family? More of that is coming into the show. But just before we go for a break, Pastor, what is out there in Ugandan families? Are Ugandan families with heads of families, or Ugandan families have leaders of families?
Wow.
No, it's on a very small scale. Because even middle class families have real big issues around managing themselves. Real big
talk
issues.
About the Birmingham Palace.
Exactly. So for me, the change is slow, but it's purposeful. For people to understand, do I choose to be a head of a family, or I choose to lead the family? Because this is a decision we need to make, and later we shall discuss what are the advantages of leading and what are the advantages of heading, but also the other way around. What do you miss if you choose to be a head of a family, and what do you gain if you choose to be a leader of the family? Thought are supposed to be done by the father. The children call them fathers. So the research brought a concept of women fathers. Because the children saw them as the ones doing the things they think a father should do. So they were calling them, that is our father.
Picking coffee berries.
Yes, that is our father.
Fetching water.
Yes. So widely out there, Ugandan families have heads of family. Just heads of families. When we talk about whether they are present or what, that's another matter. But they just have heads of families. And today we are discussing head or lead. What works for us? What is good to make sure that we're building family value systems? Because if we don't have family value systems, we get problems at the top. This country and the whole world is suffering from dishonesty. And where do we build dishonesty from?
Anybody should aspire to live in. We have good weather, we have abundance of food, we have abundance of employment as long as you look out for the right things. But Uganda has been hit in recent times with the stigma of greed, and it shows in everything that we read in the newspapers, it shows on television, it shows even when you're sitting down with people just trying to make ends meet. Everybody wants to bite off a piece that's bigger than what they deserve. That is Uganda's major problem in my eyes. If only we could curb the greed, if only we could share out that pie equally and of course responsibly, then we will be the best country on the planet. And with children, with a family of his own, living the dream. That's what I would like to see in Uganda. That's my honest opinion. And I'm Mark Kaheru, I'm Ugandan. What do you say?
Welcome back from the break. What are the advantages for leading a family?
Yeah.
And what are the disadvantages?
Okay. Like I said in the beginning, the family is both organic but also institutional. Yes, organic organization. I think organization is better. So you can have headship because yes, it's natural, it's definite. People look up to you, and yeah, you're there, but taking people nowhere. But for every organization to win, it must have direction.
Yeah.
And I think leadership is defined by Maxwell as influence. Another guy that helped me understand leadership more, he said, leadership is a discipline of exerting special influence with names from which you choose. This is where we bury, and this is how we recite our clan recital.
Slogan.
Yes, so, but you want your family to go beyond that. What language, what practices, what values, what kind. And I know in the past there used to be the question of mwana wani, whose child? Because we're saying where there's proper headship and leadership, that family is definitely going to be humane, I would say. Yeah.
For me, the issue of leadership, I think brings in an element of teamwork.
Yeah.
When you choose to lead a family,
yeah,
it will bring in teamwork. One of the problems we are suffering, and we have said it before on the show,
yeah,
raising children who are not team members.
Yeah.
They're siblings,
yeah,
but not team members.
Yeah.
That affects the progress of the family.
Yeah.
That's, for me, that's one of the side effects for leadership.
Yeah.
Is that the dominant people will assume and take over, and other people will think that if we don't hear from him, we don't have the prerogative to make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're tickling my mind. Sometimes, again, the challenges come in because, like I need to say this, that where there's leadership, the roles must be clearly defined. All right? The boundaries must also be clearly
defined,
set. Yeah. So that you are not a leader because you are the chief financial of what is happening there. Okay? Yeah. To me, that's my view.
The argument has also been that when we say head of a family is a man,
yeah,
are we saying that all the tasks and the responsibilities that come with that position and the authority that comes with that position cannot be held by women? And indeed, women have gone ahead to disprove us.
So, and I think that's where the challenge or the problem lies. To me, I think, of course, in Uganda especially, we are fully spoiled to think that leadership is falling into things so that you can eat. Okay? You become a heir, you think that now gives you right to sell
everything,
all the land.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not what we are talking about. All right? We're talking about the representative voice that says everybody. Yeah.
And that's what assume authority and control by themselves.
Yeah.
Because
no, that's wrong.
Yeah, because they say, I am the head.
Yes.
I have all the power. I have all the decision making. So I decide.
No.
You see?
You have the responsibility. And again, that's why, again, in the Christian faith, it says, the greatest among you shall be the servant, not the commandant, but the one who serves the most. You listen to the needs of the people, you understand what they desire, and you make sure that what they need is addressed. That's true leadership. That's true headship. The head does not take you to a fire. All right, although it's the feet that will draw you there, but the head takes of the child. Lack of clarity sometimes opens room for wrangles. That's why you find so and so has died, then the wife is suddenly hiding land titles and the rest and shutting down things. And so you get buried, but there's also shame in the house. That's why, again, legally, we encourage write a will so that there's clear leadership.
Pastor, I write the will and
that
say
all my children
yes.
are that
I name them by name and say all of these.
We have okay. The institution things. If there are 7 heads, that's a beast. And the book of Revelation tells us beasts are rising with the head of a horse, the head of one. You don't want your family to become that people. I'm the man. No, your place as a man should be self-explanatory. You don't have to say, I'm the man. I'm the one to take the decision. That means you lost it already, because who's telling you a woman?
So there's a comment here online, and it is, if the man cannot lead us, and the woman steps in to lead, and the man that cannot accept that, then what happens?
Well, there's going to be division, there's going to be opposition and government, and you see what happens when you need tear gas in that family, you need all these other things, mobile prisons, and that's what happens.
Where the real problem is.
Yes. No, we're not talking about who has the power. And again, the moment you are fighting for power, there's a bigger problem than who is ahead. That's when you start jumping over fences to establish your headship or your leadership. And
there are comments for you here, Pastor.
Yes.
Ken Jemba is saying, I love Pastor Joshua. Ntinda days.
That's in the past. Yes.
Ntinda days, and he says, this is a very good show. Many of us just start families without understanding it. So those are the comments coming. And then what happens when a man flees his home? Because the woman is lead investigator and the man is the head.
Well, what happens, of course, leadership usually does not provide for a vacuum. Either the woman will take over leadership, the government.
Not trained, has not been groomed, they assume they're entitled to power.
But let me give an illustration here that I think will help us. Because we get challenges, or we get challenged power-wise every day in different places. And some we've accepted and we've not allowed them to disturb us. Just like if you're driving on the road, which many men like to drive, there are those who will challenge you by virtue of the size of the car they drive. All right. Sometimes you are on the highway and your car has reached its limit, but your neighbor's car
is just starting.
All right. There's a place where say, well, I will give them way to finances, and usually it's a lot of money. Why isn't there a written proposal? Because you are not quick like your wife in explaining. No, learn, say, wife, here is my presentation, and let's talk it through. So don't allow the pressure from your wife to evict you. Let the pressure from your wife elevate you.
It is something that men need to be taught to understand. Because the way they are raised, they are not taught that. So it's a continuous and conscious effort to try and educate the men to understand, how do I react where my wife, my spouse, my living partner is much better than me in some aspects. Do I resort to an inferiority complex and begin fighting back? Or I turn that, like you say, in a positive way and try to see, how do I make myself better and learn from my partner and be much better?
Listen to your wife, listen to your peers, listen to your elders. All right? Listen to wholesome content. So I think that will help. Right now we have the advantage of WhatsApp and the rest. How I wish we could be intentional in what messages we get. Because unfortunately, many men unfortunately only go out for pornography. And pornography does not make your life better. It destroys you. What we have on WhatsApp unfortunately sometimes is rumor talk here and there. Did the doctor get a proper vaccine or whichever? But let's ask ourselves, what have I learned? How do I affirm my wife? How do I bless her? How do I listen? How do I avoid being thrown into exile?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do I become more accountable? How do I pick conversation with my teenager children? How do I change diapers to be responsible?
Yeah.
That after eating, you clear the plate. All right? When you are home, you don't look at the television on soaps that do not
enhance family bonding.
Family bonding. So do the right thing. I clean my shoes, I put them where they ought to be. We sit and talk. There's this WhatsApp that was going. This child brought a report to his father, and they were poor grades, beating, and so he ended up beating the child. How can you bring me such a report? But the story goes that the child said, you know what, I am sorry, but when
you said listening and working together, consultation. Yeah. This notion that men are decision makers is trouble. Yeah. Is trouble for men, because they tend not to consult. Yeah. Because they think they have the power and the authority to make the decisions.
But you see, decision making is not necessarily just making any decision.
Exactly. People don't understand, how do I make decisions? That is
the right decision.
Exactly. How do I make right decision? It's through consultation. So we need to, if you're just a head of a household and you want to understand, how do I become a head who leads, if I can use the acronym, how do I become a head who leads my family? Then you really have to factor in consultation. You have to factor in listening to people.
We want you to take that wellness and have the courage to go to Joshua and say, you know what, here is an area you can shine. And be their coach, be a mentor, help a young man, even an old man, say, you know what, you don't have to go into exile, but you can change the atmosphere in your home by doing A, B, C, and D. Telling your story, and this is how I changed my story, and that will help you. So every man needs to connect to another man who is flourishing. Yeah. But every man, where you are, you need to take hold of another man and say, guy, you're a fellow man. Let's not go down the ditch. Let's move on.
I just saw a story that came out last week. Yeah. It was in the Monitor newspaper. Yeah. And the title was really sad.
Clear headship. The head.
How to be heads who lead. Yes. Okay? Because we're still dealing with this issue of men are the heads of the family. Yes. Okay? So how do we work within that and transform this headship? Yeah. How do we transform the headship and then we get heads who lead? That way we're building stronger families. That way we're building strong family value systems that will turn around this world from a low-income country,
whatever that is.
Magufuli made Tanzania middle income.
Middle income. Yes. We are so grateful for that. But again, even in the USA, who are first world, you still find guys who are more broke than Ugandans.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
They don't have access to.
Looked at love needs
a destiny, and for me, it would be towards God's agenda. That's the best. Moving people to God's agenda. God has an agenda for everybody, and I know some people say, oh, it's too much of God, but God has a plan for this world. And so whether you're in business, you're a medical personnel, if somebody came to you, a good medical leader says, I want you not only to be healed, but to be healthy. I am a leader, and I am growing as a leader. And I thank God for that privilege of being a leader. And who is a leader to me? It's very simple. Someone that has a vision, but is also someone that is there serving people. For me, that's a leader. Vision is where you want to take things. Serve. Talking about leadership. You know what, friends? Leadership can be tough. Leadership can be lonely, and the dynamics of leadership keep changing. I want to encourage you, watch the CEO Bench so that you can get to hear real practical tips on leadership from people who are actually practicing leadership. Once again, thank you for being a part of the CEO Bench right here on House of Talent Television.
Struggle for liberty, torture day and night. Just because you're black, we can't forget the past. All the souls we lost, we can't deny the fact. Africa will think again. Remember Thomas Sankara, remember Samora Machel, remember Stephen Biko, remember Patrice Lumumba, remember Thomas Sankara, remember Samora Machel, remember Stephen Biko, Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, Félix, our father. Soweto, 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 Mandela. Soweto, 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 the land of the brave. Remember Thomas Sankara, remember Samora Machel, remember Stephen Biko, remember Patrice Lumumba, remember Thomas Sankara, remember Samora Machel, remember Stephen Biko, remember Patrice Lumumba.
Kampala, Apex, Uganda. Don't know about the music, Nessim Pan production. Jala, get tipsy over NSC. Missy Pepsi, a lot of them I see. The movie and no apology. Many artists get an allergy. The wagulu, a lot of them me a pre-torture. For the music in a oveni, we gone so high, so I fire off the bone, fire off the bone and so no. Studio with Tony, now we not a killer. Everybody fall in when they see the killer. Everybody fall in, feel we go oh me gala. Love me when me perform it. You know me pull up the bad man style, yeah, me. Too much money to me think you can't help me. Now me sell on the water like fairy. Some say me cool but me say I'd vary.
Bali mumotoka fe tuli kubigere, tulinze sente zafe ziwele. Mambo mingi alatakelele, and a bad mind still fight it every day. Power, them a like that fire power. Them a like that fire power. Fire happy bone, and so no.
Step on top like a pulpit. Flow got brain inside it. So visible them can't hide it. No man to me think yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sibimanyi ebyo nti oba tekulwana. Ne mukwano gwange olyanjulira. Kale ne bwenyiga nze muli nsonyiwa. Kuba tuli bantu si bamalayika. Enguudo z'obulamu bwange ntereezezza, otambulire muweegazanye. Ekyapa ky'omutima gwange mpandiseemu, erinnya lyo nkuwadde okitwale. Naye toneefuulira nga tolaba nze nkwagadde nnyo, tonjiwanga. Obulamu bwange n'obwo nga tolaba nze nkwagadde nnyo, tonjiwanga. Bambi obulamu bwange n'obwonoona, newaddeyo kukwagala mu ngeri erematiza. Tewekyanga bambi newaddeyo kuba naawe buli mbeera mukwano. Tewekyanga bambi nze neswala. Tewekyanga bambi ate noswaza nga nkwagadde. Nkwagadde.
And he's a misery, but it's from His Majesty. It's true. Once you found Christ, everything's nice, nice. Christ's love is so pure. Once you found Christ, everything's nice, nice. Christ's love is so true, so true. Oh, and a man will lay his life for we. It beats my understanding. Oh, what a joy! Christ's love is so pure. Once you found Christ, everything's nice, nice. Christ's love is so true, so true. Oh.
Day, I wanna see you fire fall. I wanna see you fire fall.
Jesus, wanna make your fire fall and touch me heart. Now make the devil come on, no visit me joy. Me call your mighty hand, we bless me soul. Bless me, I forgive Jesus, you're the one. Me not gonna live like a sufferer, eat like a sufferer, move like a sufferer. Jesus, I the emperor. Jesus, chocho wunda kama tendo kimakua. Ulisa makuwa gangi na viyo jenaga.
It's only you can make me shine. If it's reach your mighty hand to heal me, to save me, and make me see you're not better days.
Simanyi, I love you. Chimanyi, I'll forever love you. Nkulira buna mumusai. Wombo kumpi, mpulira bombi. Oh, mukwano gwo kunyuma kunyumya. Naye lino tondo budeke bumala. Mukwano libalayika emisana over night time. Sinobika, don't know I left you. Baby nze nkwagala, mukwano nze nkwagala. Mbadde nga noonya nze kyenkuwa kimbuze ekisinga nkwagala. Oh, baby nze nkwagala, mukwano nze nkwagala. Mbadde nga noonya nze kyenkuwa kimbuze ekisinga nkwagala. Soka nkuweho mukwano.
Every day I'm just faking. Being this way is heartbreaking. Why do we do it at all? Giving the money you're not making, giving and not taking. Time stole the essence from you and me. That's why I say, why do we have